Good morning. Good morning. We have Zach from Potts and Associates for our legislative update.
Well, good morning. How are we doing today?
We made it.
Well, hey, that's a great start. It's better than having everything frozen, I imagine.
There's a lot of broken things.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, I understand. I'm going to be over in Spokane here tomorrow to see Kathy McMorris Rogers. She'll be in town, so talking about fire relief and disaster relief and stuff. So
Well, that's
I'll
a
be there.
good
I'll be there. We'll see what it's like.
Yeah.
Couple of quick highlights here for this year, just kind of making note of stuff. Wasac has basically, kind of like they said, got their agenda accomplished last year. So the policy staff has had a lot of freedom to really work on a few other things and kind of position Wasac and the counties for maybe next year and kind of chime in on a few more policy components that have been, secondary kind of priorities of the counties. As you guys know, I think we're still trying to figure out at Wasac how we reconcile urban versus rural policy, specifically around the 1% property tax lid. I think that we're going to probably figure that out over the interim things we've done in the past, have a urban caucus, rural caucus, et cetera. I don't know what the answer is. But I think that we will be able to figure that out. And it's really important talking to the legislators over here that we keep the association together, because it really does give a lot of leverage when you can come in as a rural county and say, hey, the urban counties like this, or vice versa, as an urban county and say the rural counties are okay with this. So we'll get there. The other next thing is internally inside the caucuses here. The Republicans are kind of playing defense. They're being very, very strategic. They're kind of trying to figure out how to even get a bill run right now. So there's, it was such a Democratic majority, and I'm not one way or the other, but I will say that it is very difficult, and the policy is never what I would call outstanding when either party has a super majority in both houses and then has the governor. It really, there's no need to even communicate with each other. Now, that said, the House Democrats are split big time. These initiatives that were filed really cut at the core of everything that the Ds have run for the last probably 3, 4, maybe 5 years. And it is really, really irritating them. And they're in a bad spot, being that it's an election year. And what this is doing on the election cycle is it's probably going to bring more people out to vote because of the initiatives. And I think that the D side of the caucus is thinking that's not necessarily going to help them. So they're in a real bad spot. Either they do nothing and let the initiative go, or they fix it and roll back a lot of their champion policies here, or they halfway fix it and anger people more. So it's really just a tough spot. But they are still putting out quite a bit of stuff. One of the things that I included in the update that seems really weird, doesn't seem like it would even speak to counties, is House Bill 2094 and 2095. These two are talking about gift cards. And if you basically, it says if you don't use your gift card, that money would then revert back to the state. The legislators are looking at this going like, hey, there's $100 million a year that we may be able to capture because of unused gift cards, et cetera. It's not logistically feasible. I don't think it's going to happen. Just to get past the logistics, give you an example. You buy a Home Depot gift card, travel down to Arizona, spend your Home Depot gift card. How in the heck are they going to know, right? So, I mean, just that logistical concern is probably going to kill the bill. But the language in this bill is really concerning. And once it's been written, they might come back to it. The principle that we're looking out here for is personal property seizure. Basically, it's, oh, you haven't used that in so long, you must not want it anymore. The state's going to take it for the public good, etc. Let's take this away from gift cards and put this towards maybe a car that you've had parked on the street for, let's just say 61 days. They might say, well, you're clearly not using that car. You don't need that car. We're going to take it, sell it, and use the money for the state. that's kind of the slippery slope that we're looking at. It is a little bit scary, but I thought I'd bring that to your guys' attention. Like I said, I don't think it's going to move, but it's language that I suggest we watch. Additionally, Representative Kretz has got two wolf bills, 1423 and 1424. He's asked for, members of the area to come up, specifically northeastern Washington. Anybody who's got tribal interests, et cetera, in the area, you would love to have people testify on his bills. Those are on Friday. Last on the schedule was at 10 o'clock in House Ag and Natural Resources. They may change the committee time. You can testify remotely, but if you have anybody in the cattle industry or, hunting advocates or elected officials that might want to testify, either let me know or let Representative Kretz know, because he would really like to have some support from the area for these bills. The bills really are kind of filling a gap. One spot is helping the tribes out, because the tribes do a lot of enforcement and removal and monitoring, and they don't get compensated for it at all. And the other one really is dealing with kind of the gap there, where their wolves are federally delisted, and there's not a lot of really good policy and procedure in that area. So he's basically engaging the county commissioners within those areas to come to the table, and that could be a really good precedent statewide. The other one I'm getting a lot of comments about here is 5843. This is concerning security breaches of election systems and election-related systems. On that one, definitely have a look at it. Have your attorney look at it and let me know if you like it, don't care, have any specific questions. There's quite a few elements to that you probably want to look at. A good bill that we kind of like right now is 6120. This one is the urban rural or wildland urban interface, the WUI code. And it does a couple of things. Number one, it will help better map the fire map and fire risk analysis across the state using really good data, not just an estimate from somebody, a staffer in Olympia. And additionally, it will limit the WUI areas, so they won't be able to expand them in the future, which is a pretty big positive for us at this point. Let's see. The other one that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit is I'm getting some questions on Senate Bill 6029. And this is talking about accessory dwelling units outside of the urban growth areas. A couple of counties have already made some ordinances based on 1337, I believe it was, last year, talking about ADUs. This bill actually, it's not permissive, it's mandatory. Where there's another one is 2026, I believe, that comes in here, and 2126 that is permissive. That would be the kind of the House version of this bill. But 6029 is not permissive. I don't know if it's going to move, but have a look at that one. I don't know if it would go kind of contrary to any ordinances you guys may have made, but that one could cause you a few troubles if that is the case. I've had a couple of questions about Senate Bill 5978. This one is talking about OSPI, Office Superintendent of Public Instruction, talking about when the school districts take a loan from the county. I've had some questions. The auditors aren't really liking this one. There's a question is, well, what happens if a school district defaults? Who's liable for that? Right now, there's not really any clear distinction. So that one's kind of a question right now. It did have a hearing. I don't know if they're going to exec it or not, but it's something to look at. It's a big deal. Part of the problem is they're putting $10 million into an account to cover those loans. That doesn't even cover King County's need. So we're kind of going, well, I mean, why put the money there if it's not needed? So let's see, there are a couple others. There was one other one here. It's Senate Joint Resolution 8208. And this is enshrining the right to hunt and fish in the state constitution. kind of have it on pretty good authority that this one's probably going to move forward. I don't know exactly when, but have a look at that one. I think it's a pretty good, in terms of outdoor recreation, hunting, things like that, getting that protected. Because we know there's definitely some factions that would like to see hunting go away, and I know that a lot of our local economies definitely are benefiting from those hunting activities. So that's what I've got right now. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Zach, this is Commissioner Anderson. Can you talk a little bit about the small engine bill? I know there was we had a lot of discussion on it at the WASAC meeting.
Oh yeah, that's a fun little one. So that one, the big thing that they're looking at is at the local level. They want to ban all gas small engines because they're polluting. They were very nice and gave an exemption for a chainsaw and something else. I mean, things that you really just have to have a gas motor for, because the electric motors really just don't do it. The batteries don't last. The big concerns about this particular bill, number one, the cost to the county. I mean, you guys would have to, if you guys have any elect or gas engines by a certain date, you'd have to get rid of them and replace them all with electric. I guess you could probably sell them and get some of the costs back, but then you've got batteries and charging. There's a lot of infrastructure costs directly to you guys. It's not going to be as cheap as they think it will be. And, unlike, say, King County, there's not always a place to plug stuff in Klickitat County. You get out in the middle of nowhere, and where's your power? It's got to be on the truck or whatever. The other concern with it is they're trying to bring in, I've got it, the California's SOAR standard, SORE. I'll be a little bit honest here. I haven't had a chance to look at the SOAR standard, but I just can't imagine that a gas engine regulation coming out of California is something that we necessarily want in our backyard. So that's kind of where we stand on that one. I would definitely recommend not supporting this bill. It has had a hearing in committee. However, it has not moved. Based on the unpopular response to this bill, quite a bit of opposition from people in the rural areas in general. It may be too politically charged to push this bill through.
Zach, one other thing that came up during the meeting was with that bill with the source standard. I think the legislation directly ties it to if California changes their standards, it automatically changes our standards. And so there was a discussion on, opposing it just for that we are in essence giving away our sovereignty to California.
There is yes, that tying it to another state standard, especially one that I would say most people in the rural part of Washington state here would not agree with, is definitely a concern. That is a very good point. There's another couple of bills, and I don't know if they're going to go anywhere. I'd have to look them up here. They were in the report, but trying to link Washington's carbon market to the California to Ontario or whatever it is. There's another carbon market that they're trying to put together. That is another kind of sideways way to try and link carbon standards in Washington state to other areas, and one of which was Canada. So yes, I agree that is definitely a concern with that bill. Like I said, it had a hearing in committee, gosh, I think on the 11th here, and we haven't seen it move since. So that's House Bill 2051, had the public hearing on January 11th, and they're running out of time to get this one moved. Additionally, inside the caucuses, there's kind of as they move bills through the House and the Senate, whoever's in power, whether it's the Republicans or Democrats, they try and be as fair as they can. And they go, look, if one caucus is going to run a bill, the other one maybe gets to run 2, or 1 for 1, or 3 to 1, or whatever. Whatever that agreement is right now, the minority caucus has not had their allotment. And there's quite a bit of dissension about that right now. So they're And of course, the minority can bog things down with amendments and all kinds of stuff and really gum up the process in a short session. Time matters. So I know that has put a damper on bills coming out of committee, going into rules, and then hitting the floor. So until they get that resolved, yeah, they're probably going to hold things up here for a little bit.
Don't they have? I thought they were talking about putting it into for executive session, but I'm not seeing it now.
Yeah, I don't see it in exec. It kind of seems like they might have decided to hold that. There's quite a few bargaining chips right now. Anything around climate, anything around, gas engines, etc., the use of fossil fuels, all that is super, super touchy. Because you have land mass wise, a majority of the state is opposed to, the citizens in the rural counties, for example, are opposed to any of those regulations, while we're catering to the larger cities, which is where a majority of the population is. But I think that being an election year, they're being careful. So that one hasn't hit exec yet.
Mr. Christopher, it's 9:02. Did you have anything for Zach this morning?
Oh,
I want to respect his time, so I'll ask my questions next time.
Okay, thank you. Zach, thank you. It's 9:02 and we're going to move to our regular session.
sounds good. And you don't have to wait till next time to ask me questions. Call, email, text anytime.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good morning. It's January 23rd, 2024. And I'd like to open the regular business meeting of the Klickitat County Commissioners. Being noted, all three commissioners are in session. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval of the business agenda?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda with one add-on under the Healthcare Authority discussion, and we can put that under maybe right after Aaron Quinn's department update.
Okay. And all those, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, we'll approve the business agenda passes with one addition in regards to, tell me I didn't get that.
Healthcare Authority.
Healthcare Authority, and we'll move it to just after our health update. We have no meeting minutes needed for approval. So that brings us to public comment. So public comment is limited to 3 minutes. If you're joining in Zoom, please click the link. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. And for those of you in the public, if there are any, please come forward to speak when you're called upon. Thank you. So we have no one in the room, I believe, for public comment. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Six
2662. If you can unmute
Hello,
yourself.
Commission. Oh, thank you. Hello, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. This is Tracy from Lyle. And I just wanted to speak today on, I know you're having a workshop on Thursday for a fire management plan. And I just wondered if that has something to do with the WUI and the new building codes and the new land stated as being wildland urban interface from DNR. And I'm hoping that you commissioners will do your due diligence and look at the documents at the DNR website. I went to the DNR website for the wildland urban interface and their mapping. and I put in the Latin log of my address, and it comes up with my address plus an additional house with the same Latin log, and that's in Murdoch. So Lyle and Murdoch share the same post office, and I happen to have the same address as a house in Murdoch. And like I said, on the DNR map, it shows the same Latin log for both addresses, which, you know, is not right, and it needs to be changed. And I brought up addresses forever with you guys, and I don't know where to go on it. And speaking towards addresses, when you folks make a contract or a decision, you know, within the commissioners, you don't designate who is Klickitat County. You say this contract is between Klickitat County and such and such person, but there's several Klickitat counties in the county. In other words, if you go to the DUNS site, DUNS, and I know that's outdated, but it still works. But if you go to the DUNS site and you put in Klickitat County, you'll have 3 pages of different DUNS numbers for different Klickitat counties, all with different phone numbers and different addresses. And so when you read the agenda and you see a contract or an agreement that you're signing, we as the constituents don't know what Klickitat County you're referring to, if it's emergency management, if it's the planning department, if it's, you know, as such. So if you could put more details in your contract so that we'd be able to designate which Klickitat County you're referring to, it'd be appreciated. And then the last thing is the last 4 on the zip. So my zip here is 98635. The last 4 would determine if it's here in Lyle or in Murdoch or in, you know, and Klickitat County, everything that I've ever received from them does not use the last 4 of the zip code. And I wanted to know why. So they just use the zip 98635, which I'm told by USPS is not a legal address. It has to have the last 4. So I just like an explanation of why Klickitat County doesn't use the last 4. And my time's probably up, so have a great day, and thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you. Anyone in the room wish to give public comment? Thank you.
How are you guys?
Great. We're here.
Right. All right. Billy Bear, Klickitat County Assessor. Just with the weather we've been having, and I've noticed on Facebook and in my drive to town and around that there's been some property destroyed from the snow loads and things like that. And I wanted to let citizens know that there is a destroyed property exemption if we do in fact have it assessed. If it's a home or an outbuilding or something, there is a process that we go through. Our information is online on our website, and I'm planning on putting just a little blurb on there for information. But I would first recommend taxpayers or landowners to call us first or email, because we may or may not have that property assessed. So just don't want to make more work for the landowner or us at the same time, but we want to make sure that that is known, that there are laws that can reduce your assessment if you did in fact lose your portion or a whole building or structure due to the snow load.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Valuable information.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone online?
Seven, two, one, one.
7211.
Greg Wagner with Cease. During the FSEC land use consistency hearing determination, they used the they used the energy overlay zone and the Klickitat County Comprehensive Plan 2005 update, where it says the county encourages renewables in the county. We want it, we got to have it. And I'd like to say that that was detrimental to us citizens in their decision using our own county comp plan in the energy overlay zone. And I feel that any future projects, solar or wind, slated for in and around Goldendale or anywhere in the county that goes through FSEC, they're going to use the same energy overlay zone and comprehensive plan 2005 amendment against us. And I think that these two issues ought to be the Klickitat County Commissioners, the board's main priority for the upcoming year, is to work on that, eliminate the energy overlay zone because it's detrimental to all the citizens who are in the energy overlay zone, as is the amendment in the comprehensive plan. That ought to be this board's top priority if you want to protect the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of our county. And several weeks ago, I brought up the repowering of wind turbines. And I believe, and I still feel that when they repower them, they put on longer blades, they raise the unit, they put in a bigger motor, generator, that constitutes that they should be decommissioned and the permitting process start all over again. Now, in the most recent Klickitat County radio interview, that was a question of Mr. Christopher. And he turned around and confirmed everything I said. He said if they put on a 147-foot blade instead of a 142-foot blade, that constitutes decommissioning and a completely new permitting process all over again. This has not occurred on past repowerings, but this should occur on future repowerings. It is actually decommissioning. And I want to thank you, Mr. Commissioner Christopher, for confirming everything that I've said in the past. I am correct. When they designed the original wind turbines, they put in a concrete base to support that height of a wind turbine. And when they raise them or put bigger blades or a bigger motor on them, they create extra load that the base is not required to handle, cannot handle, and it needs to be redone. Repowering is decommissioning, and a new plan should be submitted and go through the whole process all over again. Birds are going to be killed. There's all kind of issues. It needs
Thank
to be
you, Mr. Webb.
redone, and I want to thank you again for supporting everything I've said. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no new people in the room. I'll ask one more time for anybody with us if they'd like to speak to come forward. Seeing none, anyone else on Zoom this morning? Sherry.
Good morning, commissioners. I guess since we're keeping track of the weeks that I bring this subject up, we're on week 6. So my question was very, I believe, honorable when I asked the Board of County Commissioners how an entity is 2 entities in one. How when we supposedly voted in this RFA, this Regional Fire Authority out here in the West Side, that they became a political subdivision as well as a municipal corporation, making them 2 legal entities. I honestly just wanted a true answer. How is it? I don't, I never really looked into government nor studied our government. And I had an honest question, an honorable question. And, through the process, I found out that Klickitat County and all, the PUD, the emergency, you're all businesses. You're all corporations. And like the other caller said, we'd like to know which corporation is making which contract. And I don't think there should be so many corporations. And last week, I didn't appreciate being said that I am giving misinformation. In fact, the headquarters for Klickitat County DUNS number, which means you're a business, is 1-896-78295. Everybody can look that up. And Commissioner Christopher verified that you take funds and you invest them. So that does make you a for-profit business. And if we're stakeholders in this corporation, because we invest in it with our property taxes and our sales tax and whatever taxes, all the taxes, license plates, we can go on and on, all the stuff we pay as citizens, as the people that made our government that we were supposed to govern. And somehow we become the servants. You became the masters when you were to be the public servants. And, you know, I've done this before. I know I only have a precious minute left for my free speech, but when you raise our value of our houses, you raise the money we pay. When you say, oh, we don't raise property taxes, well, you raise the assessed value. So if I buy a $100 coat at 10% tax, I pay $10. If I buy a $40 coat, I pay $4. So you know, I would appreciate an apology for calling me a conspiracy theorist and misinformation, because honestly, all I'm doing is trying to discover what's happening. I've seen people lose their land for inability to pay property taxes from the government. I don't like to see people being harmed. We should all live by the same common law. Do no harm. And when people are harmed, I care. Like this under canvas, it'll kill people. I care. So maybe one day we'll get to how you're two entities in one. And maybe an apology would be nice. Thanks.
Thank you, Sherry. Anyone else on Zoom? So if you are on Zoom, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. We'll try one more time. And then we'll move back to regular business. So seeing none. Yeah. So thank you for public comment today and taking your time to call in. We'll move back to regular business now. Do I hear a motion for the consent agenda? Oh, excuse me.
Get a chance to respond
It
to
was my
public
error.
comment? Okay. When.
I'm
you-
sorry.
Can I go?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Please do.
I won't speak to the accuracy or question the accuracy of any of the statements made before us today. But I will say that in my radio interview, I thought I made it abundantly clear that my personal opinion is if somebody is getting a permit to put an addition on their house, they're not tearing down the whole house. If a company is repowering their windmill, they're not decommissioning their windmill. As a matter of fact, the definition of decommissioning is a general term for the formal process to remove something from active status. If they are repowering, they're not removing it permanently from active status. So for clarification, just because there seems to be some confusion on my opinion of decommissioning, if they are removing a windmill from active status and never plan on spinning the blades again, it is my opinion it needs to be decommissioned. If they are just getting a permit to get new blades, new motor, they will have to go through the full SEPA process for the size, height, and whatnot of those blades and that motor. Just thought I'd put that out there for clarification to the public in case they misunderstood what I was saying. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Billy, for clearing and helping clear that up with regards to property and the damage. Ms. Bosque, I will again mention that Klickitat County is not a for-profit corporation. A for-profit corporation takes the dollars that they have, that they create, and they give it to the shareholders. And that is the purpose of a for-profit corporation. A nonprofit corporation will never do that. So think of Goodwill or something like that. We are a government corporation, which is completely different as well. And we do not give the excess dollars to county commissioners or anyone else. We are not a for-profit corporation owned by anyone. The PUD is not a for-profit corporation. The dollars that the county treasurer invests are many different districts' dollars. They can be irrigation district dollars. They can be hospital and school district monies that they have dollars available that they don't need right now. So they invest those in short-term notes and other short-term investments so that at least you're getting a return on the cash so that you're trying to keep up with inflation. The county is doing that with our reserves that we don't need to use today. That is a normal business operating process that all governments do. So I'm just trying to help you understand. Billy is sitting here in the audience, so I guess I'll try to respond to when you say, when we raise your assessments. Billy is required to, by state law, to reassess your property. And there's a range in which it has to fit within that assessed value. If the assessment is going up, that's because your property's worth more. And that's based on the market value as the market's changing. And she has an entire formula and program that goes through it to figure out these assessments. It is not someone trying to do harm. It's not the county doing harm. It's ensuring that the county properly follows the law and properly assesses the properties. And if people don't have the money, we have payment plans through the treasurer's office. We have elderly plans that help. We have a lot of different things that state law allows us to do to help residents so they don't lose their property. And I think that's,
You good?
I believe Miss Anderson has responded to Miss McCune many a times on the addressing, so I don't think there's anything else we can add there.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add, Sherry, it was never my intention to ever offend you. And I do value, and I value all of you who take time to call in and spend your time to speak with us and tell us your views and your concerns. And Sherry, we've sat and had coffee before. I think we're long due. I'm going to reach out and see if you have time to meet with me soon, after the weather's a little better and we don't have to travel on ice, but I would appreciate that, to spend some personal time with you again. So thank you. So we will close our comment period now. And I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda. Oh,
Madam Chair, we have before us one item on the consent agenda. My motion is to approve.
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Discussion.
Sorry. Yep, let me get my sheet out. Okay, so any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved for the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, we have before us the account payable warrants in the amount of $555,064.17. And the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $0 for the date ending January 16th, 2024. My motion is to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes for the payroll warrants in the amount of $555,064.17, ending January 16th, 2024.
Madam Chair, we have accounts payable warrants in the amount of $345,301.03 and payroll benefits warrants in the amount of $0 for the date ending January 22nd, 2024. My motion is to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion to approve the payroll warrants in the amount of $345,301.03 ending January 22nd, 2024 passes.
Madam Chair, we have the account payable warrants in the amount of $74,837.79 and payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $0 for the date entering January 23rd, 2024. My motion is to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Me? Aye, excuse me. Opposed? Please say nay. Hearing none, the motion is approved for the payroll warrants in the amount of $74,837.79, ending January 23rd, 2024. Thank you. So we're to that time of our session for update for our planning interim director, Lori Anderson. Thank you, Lori.
Well, the bottom part.
part is about 4 days.
Oh, okay.
So don't be Thank you. overwhelmed. Okay.
So just the quick planning update. Obviously, you know, last week we did not have our planning commission workshop due to weather. And then we didn't have work for a few days due to weather. So I haven't been able to really contact the planning commission members about rescheduling. Dave Barta called yesterday. Rick Graves called first thing this morning. And they're thinking, even though the weather's improving, it's still winter and lives are kind of chaotic. So they actually, both of them suggested maybe we just not reschedule and just plan to meet in February 20th. I haven't reached out to the other members yet, but I can do that. And then we do have a new member that we need to get in contact with and get him information. Of course, Matt Childs has been on the Board of Adjustment, so he has a lot of the documents already, but we need to get with him. And then I didn't get a chance to listen to the recording. I believe the vacant position, has that been filled? The one that Norma Vincent, okay. So I'm sure that's coming or is in the works.
Hoping so, but then the weather hit and I think
Yes.
nobody would taking time to put in applications.
That totally understandable. So if you don't mind, I'll reach out to the planning commission members, and unless there's some overwhelming desire to meet prior to February 20th, because the 19th is President's Day, so we will meet Tuesday, the 20th. If you don't mind. And then at that point, we will hopefully finish chapter 1 of the draft critical areas ordinance and go from there. Moving on with the weather-related office closures. Actually, I live just a few blocks away, so I came in a couple days, was able to postpone some meetings and reschedule a few things. And yesterday, that worked out very well, having the 2 hours late. Thank you. Then during the closure, we did have many calls and emails and public records requests. So we are working on getting caught back up. Pre-submission meeting tracking, we didn't get as far as we wanted to, but on the back side of your 1-page thing is how many pre-subs we had in 2023. Now what we're going to go back through is try to figure out how many pre-subs actually resulted in applications. And some of that will be a little tricky because, for example, you do a short plat pre-sub, then you need to hire a surveyor to survey the property. So it may be months or even into the next year before they actually get an application together. So, but I am happy to report the 2 rezone pre-subs did result in pre-sub rezone applications in 2023. So that was one thing I could easily report on. Under Canvas, there's no update. Requests for proposals, those are due the 26th at 2 p.m. This week, we plan to route the Bingen Point Port project, and then we still have lots of the other pending projects that you're well aware of. Which then leads into part 2, the 18 pages. And I do apologize for having so much, but
That's good.
some of the older documents were all together, so just put them together. So I don't know if you want me to just start with the Board of Adjustment. First and foremost, I'd strongly encourage some legal counsel to get involved because this changing the duties of the Board of Adjustment would affect quite a few ordinances and amending quite a few things. The Board of Adjustment was created May 18th, 1970 under Ordinance 51870, and there's 17 pages are attached with that sort of information. The primary resources we have or that I came up with was RCW 3670 in the 200s. And that covers the roles and duties of the Board of Adjustment. RCW 3670C covers decisions that are appealed to Superior Court. And that is what happens with the Board of Adjustment decisions. They are appealable directly to Superior Court. And then our zoning ordinance, section 6.2 to the end of that chapter is all about Board of Adjustment. And this is just some of my own personal history. Since November of 91, when I started in the planning department, probably at least 93% of our projects were the consideration of conditional use permits. Approximately 5% dealt with variances, and those were primarily variances to setback requirements, setbacks from property lines. And then the remaining approximately 2%, and this is just in my memory, one was for an appeal of a resource lands evaluation, and the other was a variance to the critical areas ordinance. And certainly if you have questions, holler, I'll try to answer them. And our zoning ordinance is the primary ordinance that covers the Board of Adjustment. Under basically every zoning designation, there's a list of uses allowed with conditional uses. And there's always a catch-all that the Board of Adjustment may permit as conditional uses any other use it judges to be no more detrimental than to the adjacent properties than and of the same type and character as the above listed uses, which is referencing conditional uses. Section 3.1 talks about the purpose of Board of Adjustment and having supplemental provisions to the requirements. 3.61 is setback variances. 3.85 talks about home occupations. 4.2 is off-street parking. 5.10 is non-conforming uses. And then under that, there's use 1, 4, and 7 that specifically mention needing Board of Adjustment approval. 5.14 talks about reapplication. For example, if an application is denied, there's a time period before you can reapply. And then back to section 6.2 in the zoning ordinance through 6.11 talks about adjustments, variances, and appeals. And then doing a quick search in some of our other ordinances, the Recreation Park Ordinance references the Board of Adjustment, Critical Areas Ordinance, and that's the current and the draft, and Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance, and then the Shoreline Master Program. And there's a resolution on page 18 of this that talks about shoreline substantial development and shoreline conditional use permits going to the Planning Commission, since they're both a conditional use and a shoreline permit. So there's kind of my basic summary of the Board of Adjustment, other than they typically meet the first Monday of the month unless that's a holiday. And of course, they only meet when they have items to meet on. And first and foremost, I am not the one to recommend or tell you how to proceed if you wanted to change the duties of the Board of Adjustment, and strongly encourage legal counsel.
Thank you, Lori.
Oh, you're welcome.
Historical knowledge is, we can't do without you.
Oh,
And-
well.
And I thank you for putting the packet together. This is a wealth of information we would have had to look for. And I appreciate your comments. I also hope that we consider, we have a new planning director
Right.
coming, and I would like him wrapped into these things too. He has a very long background too in planning and a lot of crucial information that he can help with these. And this also affects his work going forward. So I'd like to see that.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
And we're excited to have him coming.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes.
Have him
But certainly if you
come.
have questions, I'll try to answer. And
Well, I guess, it's Board of Adjustment discussion, with the information that we've been given that's in our packet. Is there anything this board would like to do? Any actions?
Mr. Christopher? Do you have comments or an
I
answer?
have no comments at this time.
Um, For now, I believe it's prudent to listen to Ms. Anderson and send this to the prosecutor for his review to see if there were changes, what would happen, or if they can be changed. Are we at that portion yet? No.
I wouldn't think so. I
Okay.
would think we would have to come up with what
plan.
we would like to
So we can
change.
ask
If
him the
there's anything broke, then we would want to fix it.
Okay.
But I guess my personal opinion from the previous discussion we were having, I believe that it was potentially that after the Board of Adjustment, then we were looking at it coming before the Board of County Commissioners, was the discussion I thought that was brought up. And we wanted to look into the RCWs and see if that was a possibility. Is that how you recall?
Yes,
The-
it was.
And so I guess from my review of the RCW, it clearly says that the decisions by the Board of Adjustment are final. And so the RCW takes care of it. So thank you for the overview, but I don't see that there's anything that the board could do to change that process if it's enshrined in RCW.
Right, and that's how I understood it, and I did not actually have a problem with the process. Just, there's some application, homework type process within the Board of Adjustment was what I was interested in looking at, but changing the entire process, I think, I don't know if it's possible, and it's a huge lift, a lot to talk about if we're even going to talk about that. Mr. Christopher, where would you like to go with Board of Adjustment conversations?
I don't have anything to offer at this time.
Okay. So at this time, are we interested in just leaving Board of Adjustment as it is and making sure we get a new member to replace Mr. Childs?
I mean, unless something comes up from my perspective, we don't need it on the pending items list or anything.
Okay.
It is what it is, and RCW says what it is.
And I'm sure you'll update us if you want more information or what we need to do. So
I do not myself know why it was on the agenda today. I did not put it on the agenda today, so.
I think it was asked for workshop, and then what happened with that is we had time on our agenda, so we split some things, so we didn't have such a heavy workshop. So we brought it today.
And if I may,
Yes.
Chair, I would like to say thank you to Lori Anderson. This is a great document. It's a great research that you did. I am impressed, to say the
No.
least.
thank you. And well, a
Thank
lot
you
of
very
time the last few days, even though I may not have been here, but you know,
Yeah.
you can only sit at home and shovel snow for so long. So thank you and have a good day and all.
Well, and I'd like to say thank you, Lori, for working at home. And so the public knows, being chair, my phone rang constantly 4 a.m. on, I think. And I have to thank all of our staff and all of our directors that did work at home. We had lots of people working at home that I communicated with during this time. So people were keeping up on their duties as best they could.
And I do have to admit, since I live nearby, I just came in a
Right.
couple of times.
And I
because
know there were several that came in that
Yeah.
shouldn't have braved the roads, that I worried about a few times.
my dogs were confused when I was at home working. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Lori. So Commissioner miscellaneous reports and comments. Where would you like to start? Mr. Christopher?
Thank you. I did bring forward the Washington State Archive Local Grant Program grant. I have tried for 3 years in this county to get our archiving caught up. We have basements full of paper documents. We have shipping containers full of paper documents. We have offices with thousands of pounds of paper documents over the heads of other employees. I have brought up multiple times in 3 years that this board should hire an outside agency to scan those documents. I have brought up that this board should work with IT to get a software package that will make those scanned documents searchable, which will save countless hours of public records requests time and will also allow us to be compliant with public records for the first time in a long time. And I've always been told no, and it's always a money thing. So I'm bringing before you a grant that will pay for a big lump sum of it. Now, unfortunately, you can apply for either $30,000 for the IT software part of it, or $20,000 for organizing the file room, or $50,000 for the scanning and uploading, but you only get one. It is my opinion that if we pay for a scanner and uploader, it's a minimum of 50. That I believe that's the one we should use, but I'm hopeful that this county sees the dire importance that I see, and will no longer use the financial part of it as the excuse to not do it. And it will work with someone, whether that's our staff to facilitate the grant or HR to facilitate the grant. We'll work with IT to figure out what software needs to be put in place. We'll reach out to the scanning companies to get a ballpark cost so that we can facilitate writing a grant and actually fix a problem this county has had for decades. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Christopher. I think we all agree that scanning documents and archiving them and having them searchable makes an enormous amount of sense. I would also like to thank all of our departments who have been scanning and putting their documents online. I know our public health department has spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours doing that with all their documents. Our environmental health department has done that. I think that this grant is great. I would support moving forward with it. I think we should add it to the workshop agendas and ask the other electeds to come in with their ideas on the best way. And then we can get an update from them on how they have made progress on scanning documents and sending them in. I know the auditor's office, I believe, has done a great job of this in the past. And so I think that's the best way to move forward from my perspective, is to bring the group together, IT and as well as the electeds, for a conversation on applying for the grant dollars.
Hearing from the auditor, I guess she has applied 3 times, and she stated that it's a highly competitive grant.
I bet.
Doesn't hurt to try.
Doesn't hurt to try. I agree at some point too, Mr. Anderson, bringing in the electeds and the departments to see who needs help with scanning and who's already moving forward and gotten themselves in position where they are working on it. Money is always good. We should try to apply if we can to help those who are in the hole possibly. And moving forward, jumping the agenda a bit, we're going to be having discussions later in the morning about the WSU contracts. And Hannah submitted her background and what she'd been working on. And I noted she doesn't work for just us, it's Community County and other counties and other entities. And so she has a very big background in business services. And so that was one of the things I checked on my list, that a possibility going forward with the WSU contracts could be using that staff to help us with scanning and grant writing and grant administration. So those are discussions we can have later in the day, but we have options. And if we'd like to put this on a workshop agenda coming forward and notify others to come in and let us know what their needs are for scanning, that'd be great. Okay. Anything else on the scanning?
So action item would be to put it on maybe the agenda for Thursday for a workshop and invite the electeds over. Would that work for Commissioner Christopher?
If the electeds would like to take part in This, I have no problem with that, but this was meant for the county to get its house in order. I don't know of a backlog of documents in any other elected officials' departments, only our departments. So while I would open the discussion for everybody, this is my request was for this county and the Board of Commissioners to get their departments in order.
Well, considering that the auditor has applied for the grant 3 times so far, I think it would be good to have a conversation with the auditor about the grant application and applying for it, because what I would not like to do is having the Board of County Commissioners applying for the grant and the auditor applying for the grant at the same time. I think it would be a good idea for the county to apply. And if we need to change the scope, or we need to invite other people in to review the grant application, so that hopefully we can be more competitive so that we can get the grant. I just think the discussion's good.
Mr. Christopher, anything else? If we could, for me, reaching out to directors as well for their departments, so we know who's in that loss, because I know we recently heard from staff that we'd like to talk about scanning. So even our own office needs some scanning help. So I think hearing from the directors and the electeds of who'd like to attend and what ideas they have, and especially Heather in regards to the grant, is probably a good idea.
I would recommend this board personally invites IT so we can ask about software. Personally invites solid waste because I know they have a bunch of records. Personally invites building and planning because I know they have a bunch of records. And they're the only ones that I think have a big enough backlog for us to, we need to have their input on that.
Sure. That's why I think, and I think I've heard some things, if I'm not incorrect, in economic development of natural resources. So we may just want to reach out to each one, kind of broadcast it out and see who's got a problem. Okay, ready for the next subject?
Yep.
Okay, so Dallasport wastewater plant PUD budget. The PUD did submit their budget to Public Works for review. And taking a look at it, I only had a couple of questions, so I reached out to finance. And the questions that I had, actually, the PUD had sent along a checklist with that budget that they forwarded and answered those questions for me on that sheet. So my questions in regards to that budget have been answered.
I did have some questions on that, under the contractor section. There's a note G, but the contractor section went from 6,500 to 61,000. And I don't know, I'd like to know that that's a $50,000 expense for the flushing and pigging of the line from Hill Street to Dallasport Road. But I think it would be great for me to have a conversation, if we as the board could have a conversation with the PUD about other expenses that they see coming that are, on this maintenance side that might be $50,000, $60,000. Cause we raised the rates and it went from rate revenue of $318,000 to $359,000. But we're still in the hole $31,000. And I want to hear from them what options we have to maybe cut some costs. Because right now we're losing money on the operations. We're not even starting to make progress on our actual capital projects. And that scares me greatly.
Mr. Christopher?
I have questions. Who owns the sewer lines? Who should be pigging the sewer lines? What's the maintenance schedule on pigging the sewer lines? Is the cost for pigging the sewer lines, do we charge enough rates to those people that are using that sewer line to pay for pigging the sewer line, or are they not paying for what they're flushing down? So yeah, lots of questions there. Maybe you have the answers if you've talked to the PUD. Capital project list, it looks like they're put on the clarifier for this year's project list, and we'll be submitting a bill for reimbursement to the Board of County Commissioners for the capital project of the clarifier that is not funded. So maybe you have the answer to that one of where we're coming up with the $250,000 to pay for the other half of the clarifier. So I do believe there's questions that need to be answered.
Great.
If you have the answers, I'm more than willing to listen.
Nope, that's what this session was for, to look and see if we did have questions. I think it's prudent to visit directly with the PUD, maybe invite them to come in, workshop or, workshop space, at least that we could work out with them where they have time to come in. And would you like Public Works in that meeting as well?
Absolutely.
I would like to request this board have this meeting on a Tuesday. I'm pretty sure there's a big contingent of people in Dallasport that would like to know what's going on in Dallasport, and they can attend a Thursday non-Zoomed workshop. So it's my recommendation we have that discussion on a Tuesday, up to this board on whether they want to facilitate that. So we are now Zooming Thursday workshop. I know the board was going to check on costs and prices and things like that, but I didn't know there was an official answer back.
We just got it back.
When did the board officially make that decision?
When did we have that discussion? It's been weeks that we discussed that we were in favor of it, but we needed to discuss what that entailed, whether we could
I
use Zoom.
understand
or
that, but there
YouTube.
has to be an official answer
Sure.
from the board, and I don't believe that happened in this room. That's why I'm asking. When did that happen? I'd like to go watch the video.
I heard you.
I thought we, during the discussion, we said we want to move forward so long as we talk to IT, and in that meeting, we decided that we were going to do that. And then it sounds like we got back the information and we were and the chair decided to move forward with that because that was the will of the board at the time. If you would like a
And that was my
motion,
understanding.
then we can easily make a motion.
Sure. If you'd like to go back and search through Zoom to find it, but that's my recollection to Mr. Christopher and staff. That's the same recollection. So that's why we moved forward. But if you'd like an official motion on the record, I could call for a motion to for the board to approve Zooming workshops on Thursday. It's been necessary. The public's been asking for it, that's for sure. So
I don't think it's needed.
Okay.
But it might be nice to put our official positions on the record because I have a feeling they may be questioned over time. So yes, I have no problem. And with that, I will make a motion that we formally Zoom and record all Thursday workshops.
I will second the motion.
Discussion.
Just for the record, I would say that when we originally decided to not Zoom the Thursday meetings, I was a no vote on that. I was in favor of finding the money and will to Zoom the Thursday workshops. So I'm very happy to see that we're doing that now.
Okay. Mr. Christopher, any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved for Zooming workshops on Thursdays. Thank you.
Can we invite them in on a Thursday workshop?
Does that work for you?
As long as it's Zoomed, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Great. So the coroner position is next on our list. Does anyone have discussion? I have just a small amount.
Please.
I did reach out to Skamania County for what their plans were. Like everyone, they're watching that new legislation and they want to wait till that comes around to make their decisions. And they don't even have this on their radar till maybe May or June for discussions, which it sounds like for us budget-wise, that's a little too late. We need to be done by about March, from my understanding. But they did say they would entertain a cooperative agreement if we so come up with something. So that was positive.
I guess I had LSC to add to the reports, but we did talk about the legislation up there. And we hadn't seen the legislation when we last spoke last week. But on Wednesday, we had a discussion about the legislation, and what the sponsor of the legislation's goal was not the legislation that was written down. And the legislation that we thought would allow, the prosecuting attorney's office to continue doing that, that is absolutely not the case. The only thing the legislation does is reduces the training requirements for whoever the coroner is going to be. The sad part about that, though, is the state already pays for the training anyway, so it doesn't actually save the counties any money because the state pays for it. It just reduces the training requirements.
Training requirements for smaller counties.
For the smaller counties. So we had a good discussion at the LSC meeting about what everybody else was thinking about doing. And it really comes down to it. If you want to be appointed, you could then do an MOA or, something between counties so that you can create kind of like a coroner district, kind of like the public health district, something like that. Whereas if it's an elected position, it's like elected within your county. And so that's where it gets kind of wishy-washy. I've had a few discussions and for my personal opinion is, if we can work with Skamania County, and save a bunch of money, I'm fine with doing an appointed position between the two counties. Another way you could do it is, you could do an appointed position, like we could appoint someone and then Skamania County could contract with us and do it that way. So there's two different ways to do it. It's whether or not the other county wants say in who that person is or who's going to get appointed. If it's just going to be just Klickitat County, I would prefer it be an elected position. And that's just from my discussions at LSC,
Okay.
with what everybody's doing.
Mr. Christopher.
While it would be nice for Skamania to pay 30% of our bill or whatever percentage they would pay, and that would all be nice and dandy. I believe and still hold that it should be an elected position, someone that's accountable to the taxpayers. We have enough questionable cause of death situations in this county that I surely don't want that to be an employee of the Board of Commissioners. And then the Board of Commissioners questioned on their training or their staff or their hiring, or did they do it this way just so they could save a little money with Skamania County? I would like an elected official to be in charge of it, and that elected official to come before the board and tell me how much money he needs in his budget to do his training. I'm going to stick with elected official, and if this board wants to do otherwise, it can.
How would you like to move forward? Would you like to have
I'd like, what are your thoughts?
yeah. Where would you like to go from here? You're just standing.
I'm elected. If you guys want to work with Skamania County and try to figure out whatever you want to figure out, that's on the two of you. My vote is elected, and that's where I'm at.
I have one question. I'm not sure if we can answer it, or maybe we have help in the room, maybe. As an elected official, can they contract or do an MOU themselves with Skamania County?
This is, we're getting into the nitty gritties of the law, and we need to talk to the
Prosecutor.
prosecuting attorney
Okay.
about it. But I don't think the legislation is going to help that unless
Okay.
we can get like a substitute bill put in or some additional bill language put in. But I know, we are not the only county, and all Eastern Washington counties are talking about it. I know a couple of counties, Stevens, were like, can we contract with, Spokane County? Because they've got like a whole coroner's office and all sorts of stuff. And one of the other questions is I think Yakima County is large enough that they have a whole coroner's program as well, if that might be an option.
Well, it sounds like we need to put all of our information together on costs and what that would look like for work with, my concerns for Skamania County are, we know the burden Skamania County is under for economics, and being a good neighbor, whatever we can combine with Skamania County, not to just help ourselves, but help our neighbor. I think that's a good thing to do, to include them in what we do. I would like to explore what that would really look like if we contract with Yakima, if it's even possible. I would like to explore what that means to do the elected. I have some concerns about elected position. You can't take that back. Once we make that final decision and we have that elected position we've created, that's a big deal. And to move it back, since we're just beginning under the county commissioners and we start the program and get it up and running, we can always move to elected, but we can never come back the other way. So I'd like to have that all on paper and have considerations about costs versus the both ways to do it. So do we want to move this further discussion down the line so we can come back with more information?
Yeah, I think this should stay on the pending items list and has to. We've got to make a decision. We need to start moving forward. I would say let's maybe delegate some of that discussion. I was missed a couple of phone calls during the snowstorm from Skamania County Commissioners, but I wanted to talk to them. And then I don't know if you'd like to talk to Yakima County.
I can reach out to Yakima County. And Mr.
I would recommend that if this board is thinking about making an appointed position, the first people they talk to are the people they might potentially appoint, because those people that they might eventually appoint may have absolutely zero interest in working for this board, and that might end the discussion right there. I believe there's quite a number of people that are qualified that would run for the office, but I do not believe there is interest in them working for the Board of Commissioners. So that might be something that this board chose to do before it spent a lot of time to do it otherwise. Just an offer.
Since we both have got our work order, would Commissioner Christopher like to talk to those people and create a white paper or something?
No, Commissioner Christopher would not, because Commissioner Christopher believes it should be an elected position, and he believes that it will end up being elected position, whether it's this board that does it or the next board. So if you want to spend your time going through that process, feel free.
Moving forward, so we'll put that on pending issues coming up. Would you like to wait 2 weeks, Jake, to put that on pending in 2
The
weeks?
workshop for 2 weeks, I think would be good. Hopefully, because next week I'll have another discussion at LSC and see what other counties are doing.
Yeah, takes time to get answers back sometimes. I'm gonna reach out to a couple of different places, so I need a little bit of work time on that. Any other? We're close. We're over time by 4 minutes for Public Works. Can we move on to Public Works? Mr. Christopher, do you have
I
anything else?
have nothing.
Mr. Anderson?
No, as long, I've got LSC and Bridge and we can just push that after the HCA discussion.
Okay, so we have Public Works Director update, Jeff Hunter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Hey,
See you survive.
maybe.
Not done yet.
Ready?
I am, yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, we don't have anything on the consent agenda. We spent too much time playing with winter weather. We have one pay estimate, and that's for Knife River in the amount of $188,372. And that's for curb warning and guideposts. That's a federally funded project. So that's all Fed dollars. Construction update, again, not a lot moving. Contractor will curb and warning signs they'll finish that project when they can, weather breaks. And the crushing, they tried to get into Fisher Hill. They can't get in. It's just too much snow, too much ice. So they're moving to Badger Gulch. But they want to get started because they have, you know, multi-million-dollar plant sitting ready to go. So they want to get in. On the road side, again, we are working through things, trying to finalize some stuff to get out to bid shortly. Field work on the ball bank stuff is moving along, and the bridge bundles, we received approval from WashDOT to go out to RFQ. So we'll be doing that shortly. On the east side, winter reaction, we're going to get more into detail at the end. We're still doing that. Same with the west side. Upcoming facilities or facility events, we're still waiting for the manufacturer to get here to do the roof to do a punch list on the roof. Superior Court, we had the walkthrough scheduled for last week, but nobody could drive from Portland up to here. So those are pushed to this week. Events, we acquired a new event. We have a birthday party in the exhibit building on the 25th. And our fuel island, the consultant's still working on the design. We're working away on the auditor's voting area, and the HVAC contracts. Pioneers is out to bid, and the courthouse will soon be out to bid. SATA's passed. They actually walked in there. They thought it was just as simple as pushing a reset button. It's not. The camera doesn't work. Something's wrong with the camera. So now they got to bring somebody up. The camera sits at 60 feet in the air. They got to bring somebody in to climb the tower and replace the camera. Again, it's their problem, not ours. They should have put the right camera in first. They didn't. I don't know what to tell them. So there's some stuff there. Elevator improvements were rescheduled to next week. That's a big deal. You got to get L&I and everything else. And of course, with the storm and the weather, they didn't make it. So speaking of the weather, and where are we, what we did. We will put together a cost when we get there. For us, it's a two-sided thing. We have facilities and we have roads. So we have both. And we have challenges on both. What we did is, and I can't thank our staff enough. I mean, the guys, we had a small crew on Saturday, but other than that, in the holiday, our guys worked 14 days straight. Every day plow. The mechanics, they were there with the crews. They also put in some late nights to make sure our fuel, with the weather, we had the fuel systems gel. They had to keep the fuel flowing. And then we had trucks break down. They spent one night till I think 10 or 11 putting a truck back together so we could get it back on the road. Speaking of trucks, we still have 3 10-yarders down, 1 5-yarder, and 2 1-tons down. And one of them's in Portland. The other ones were waiting for parts because we just nobody can get anything across the gorge. If we had the parts, we fixed it. We did what we could. We ended up renting a grader, an emergency rental for a grader. The only way they could get it here is they roaded the thing down 14 with chains all the way around it from Washuku. That's how they got the grader here. Because for anybody that drove west of here, it was really bad. 14 was the worst I've ever seen it. When we went, it took us 2.5 hours to get from Goldendale to the Pioneer Center on Thursday to do work there. Again, our office staff, they got here, at least a couple of them every day to answer the phones so we could respond. Our inspectors and survey crew, we're out on this cutting trees out. Yesterday we've lost over 150 trees. They've also, the inspectors have been working around the facilities helping us do carpentry work, and also they're clearing snow. Now they're clearing snow because our other guys, because they were working on snow stuff, now they got to catch up on all the work orders. So they're doing the work orders, and our guys, we got to get this snow cleared once we get another 5-yarder that we have at the fairgrounds up and running. Mechanics are working on that as we speak. Our roads, like I said, were better than WashDOT's. You know, I can't thank, like I said, the staff enough. I spent more time with Rick Millerin and Troy Grumbles than I probably did with my, or definitely did with my family, and what they did with their family. So we are fortunate enough to have our contractors, when we called, except for one, they showed up. We called people that we needed. We called a plumber. He came in Saturday because the hot water heater went out again in the jail. We basically replaced most of the components on the hot water heater. Luckily, we had them in service, or we could make them, the ones we did, work. But long-term, the hot water heater is probably on the end of its leg. And that's, you know, anywhere but about $6,000 or $7,000 just for the equipment, not for the replacement. Again, what happened to that is the system that's in there, the fire suppression system, froze. And then when it thawed, it sprayed water, and it had enough impact to shoot the end of the pipe through a wall. And then it flooded the jail kitchen. It was like rain coming out of the, enough to fill the 55-gallon trash can. There was a lot of water. I can't speak more highly. We thought we had about a 10% chance of getting the 3 things done that needed to be done. They had no heat, no fire suppression, and no hot water. And we were told if we didn't get it done by 3 o'clock that afternoon, they were going to evacuate the jail. The cost of that would have been phenomenal to the county. Luckily, we got it done around 1:30, and we avoided the evacuation of the jail. Then the hot water heater went out again, so we were back there Saturday fixing the hot water heater. So yeah, we've done a lot. I will say, when people take shots at this building, we would not have had this building, we'd have been in serious trouble, because Annex 1 would have froze up and burst pipes everywhere. It would be closed right now. Same with the Annex 3, you'd have froze the water, the main water line that's right underneath the concrete. You would have had no water there. Annex 2, who knows what that would look like. But yeah, this building was fine. I heard when all the power went off, we could see the lights from this building. Again, we still have some stuff we're working on. The jail generator, we have somebody here doing that. The jail hot water heater, like I said, works. We're hoping it's going to continue to work. That's the plan. We haven't seen any issues, but we're going to monitor it. We had a couple leaks in the jail.
If the jail hot water heater is at end of life, is it feasible for us to relook at our capital project list and potentially put it on and take something that can be moved till next year off?
Yes, that is a potential, and that's one of the things we will look at.
Okay.
The other thing, I'll work with Rob, because what helped make that thing come to the end of its life, because they have electronic switches and everything in them, when you douse them with, who knows, a couple 1,000 gallons of water, they don't like that. So that might be an insurance claim. Again, I'll work with Rob on some of that. We're hoping we'll get some. I don't know what we'll get. We have a couple leaks in the jail, but those are not from the roof. We've pinpointed where those come from, and we'll be fixing those. Pioneer Center Fire Suppression, when we put it together because at the end of that, there's a T at the very end of the line, and it's a blow off for the last fire, or the last sprinkler head. When you blow the system off, there's a head outside, and it blows the system. Well, that froze, and broke. So we don't have the T. You're not going to get that. It's a specialized product, but you don't need to blow the system off. So what we did, we went in, capped it, cut a hole in the sheetrock, crawled in there, capped it, and the fire suppression guy's actually here today. So he will, but it doesn't hurt the system because all the heads work. I just want to make that clear. I heard the rumors that building was shut down. It's not shut down. We're still working with the HVAC systems. Again, the cost, we're going to try, some of the costs we're not going to catch. It's going to be harder to catch. It'll take longer because, for instance, in the jail, the temperature dropped to 50 degrees. We've run the units at a lot higher temperature than we would like to. And that is to bring the jail up, especially when we didn't have the generator. So if the heat went out or if the power went out again, we wanted to keep the jail warm enough. So we'll be able to kind of turn that back down. We've also ran the Pioneer Center. We usually turn the buildings down on the weekends to unoccupied. We didn't do that this time at the Pioneer Center, especially the end where West District Court is, because that's where we were having trouble with the units. And what was happening with the units is again, they were trying to cool 7- degree temperature or heat 7-degree- temperature up. And there's something in the electronics froze because they should go to just the inside units. For some reason, they did not. We don't know. I just got heard, we were thinking that it was fuel and the generator out here. It appears it's the motherboard. Again, most of this stuff was caused by this storm. I've been here for 15 years. I've seen the snow, I've seen the ice, I've seen the cold, I've seen the wind, but never all at the same time. And it stayed cold for a long period of time. But again, I can't thank our group enough and the support we had. And that's kind of, I can answer any questions, but that's where.
All I have to say is thank you and thank your staff and all the hard workers that tried to maintain our roads, which I don't know how they ever managed that one. So it would be nice if we could at least do lunch for them or something. One of these, I know that used to be a thing. Even if we're just buying pizza at the end of this for both end shops, it would be my recommendation to the board that we do something. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
You guys put in an enormous amount of time, effort, and due diligence. And I think your staff, your facility staff, your drivers, your mechanics, people going above and beyond, doing things that are usually outside their regular work duties. That was a heck of a storm. And I've seen a lot of people, questioning why the county offices were shut down online. Well, now you know. Everybody's house, we all had pipes freeze, we all had issues. It's a whole different ballgame when you've got, multiple buildings with, dozens of heating units that are having problems. And yes, there was a reason that the county offices were shut down. But I want to make it very clear that county employees were working very diligently during this shutdown, and I can't thank you all enough.
And me too. And thank you for the constant contact. You send updates to people that need to know. And this morning you even sent an update. It was a little around 5 o'clock, I think, and when that phone dinged, and I thought, no, I don't want to hear anything bad, but it was a good update that we were making it today and moving forward. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I felt bad though, because actually it turned out, I thought we were done. Now we have freezing fog.
Yeah.
And
it's not going to last long.
it was, no, it's not supposed to.
Yeah.
And actually, when I talked to the guys, the roads were bad and then they started free. It's like an anomaly though, because the ground is colder than the air temperature. So where we got the snow and ice cleared off and the road was blacktop, it became very slick.
Black ice on my way.
Yeah.
Yes, and I did hear, you know, we had some roads that were pretty bad. And I know one happened to be Commissioner Christopher's road. We struggled with that one.
I was hoping that I wouldn't get in trouble because it was literally 1 lane wide. And I had the snow blower on the back of the tractor, and at least in front of my property, I made it 2 lanes wide. And just kind of a gradual approach back to 1, so nobody was going 2 and then ramming into a snowbank, but hopefully I didn't get in trouble.
No, we appreciated, we had some other people help. We appreciated all the help.
If we could make a
got.
little turnout once in a while, it helps, so.
It does, it does. I mean, yeah, our goal was to get up. It took us a while when we got the snow to punch.
See,
through.
there you go. For everybody listening, the commissioner's roads were not all perfect.
No, they were not. I can tell you that factually. Everybody got the same treatment.
Today was the first day I could get out.
Yes,
So,
it was
I was
it was
working from home.
miserable.
Yes, it was dangerous, and this morning was even dangerous.
It was,
so-
yeah, it was so bad Friday that you couldn't walk out here without shoe chains.
It's pretty sketchy out there right now.
It is.
Yes.
So, thank you, Jeff. Piggybacking on Commissioner Anderson, you know, the public should know after COVID, our technology evolved to where even though we're closed, I was talking to a lot of employees in offices and departments throughout the closures. Some employees actually came in and worked in the facilities, and 3 or 4 years ago, prior to COVID, we couldn't have continued to work offsite like we have. So a significant number of employees continued to work even though they weren't on this location. So that's.
If I can interrupt, I have to thank Mr. Van Cleve too, because so many of our employees helped other employees, departments helped departments,
Mhm.
whatever needed to be done. And Mr. Van Cleve is in the Dalles, and I'm going to tattle on him. He even assisted the sheriff's office by struggling on the bad roads in the Dalles and the traffic to get to cash and carry to get extra groceries for the sheriff, so the sheriff could pick them up at the bridge area and take them up. So everybody helped everybody. It's our county. It's great to see us this way.
Mhm.
If I may, I think something I would like to see is a proclamation of appreciation for all of our essential employees, county as well as PUD, during this turn of events.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. Elise, did you get that? Okay, great. Good. Well, thank you, Jeff. And Mr. Christopher's suggestion for a lunch for Public Works, good?
We typically do one.
Okay,
We always have. We've always invited the commissioners.
Great.
We just haven't had one in a while
let us know.
because we try to do it our downtime, so it would probably be more in the spring. Because it never fails. If we schedule something now, we'll have an
Mhm.
event and then.
Nobody
you
can
know.
come.
At least there'll be food for the people too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I don't know if this board wants to address it or if it got the email from staff a week ago. That there is questions from staff on who is an essential worker and who is not an essential worker. It sounded like employees needed direction on who was or who wasn't, and then whether this board wanted to clarify or come up with some kind of a list so that they would know.
And I think, Elise, didn't you find something in our policies of what essential was? But I think that we need a longer conversation, even about closures. There's been some discussion that maybe the closure statement needs to be more directed towards, is the facility open and available? And then reaching out to let directors dedicate who they need into the office, who they don't. So I think we need to have a workshop on that to refine that policy on what we do for closures and how we use those.
Because the other question is, we do have employees that work on Saturdays. And
Mhm.
while you close it on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you don't get the phone call to say, do we close it on Saturday?
Right,
So does that Saturday employee need to drive across the ice skating rink because the county's not open?
right.
How does that work?
I agree.
You know, it's amazing. We don't have an answer after 20 years, but technically we should have a policy in place that we know the answer going forward.
Well, life used to be simpler, I think. We'll just say that about it, but we do need to update that policy.
And I believe that Director Van Cleve was hit the nail on the head. When we put out the press release, that's that the offices will be closed. They will be locked up. There are people that live next door that may want to come in and work, and if the building has water and heat, they can do that.
Mhm.
But just because the building is closed does not mean, because most employees now have laptops and can work from home. And I think maybe what part of that policy is we, before we know an event happening, we have our directors make sure that they're sending laptops home with people so that they can still do some work or a portion of their work, because either way, the work's got to get done.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well, I know there was frustration too about the building not being open because if somebody wanted to say, come get a permit, but during that time, we have a responsibility, a big responsibility too for public safety and watching out for the public. And maybe the idea needs to be if the building's not open, it's a good idea that you put your permit off for a few days for your own safety. And on top of that, we're very, very responsible for the people in the field. Our EMS people, the ambulance people, the more people on the road, the more we're subjecting staff and emergency people to harm for themselves too. So it's kind of a bigger look of looking out for everybody, not just being public servants. Kind of changes our tone a little bit when something big happens. But yeah, I look forward to that conversation about amending that policy. And did we have Health Department, Aaron Quinn? Oh, okay. So,
Madam Chair, we have before us the pay estimate for approval of number one for the curve warning signs and guideposts CRP 371 in the amount of $188,372.72. My motion is to approve.
I'll second.
any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved for the pay estimate for the curve warning signs and guideposts CRP 371 in the amount of $188,372.72. And now, there's Erin. She's going to be on Zoom. Great. So we
Yes,
have
good
our
morning.
department update from Health Director Aaron Quinn.
Good morning. Hopefully you got the packet. I think I had it sent over before the snow hit, so hopefully you got all the numbers I sent over. So for environmental health, it's, it's our slow season. So really this is the time of year when they focus on making sure that the policies and procedures are upgraded, working on administrative updates, doing training, making sure all their quality control for the water lab, all of those kind of administrative duties get taken care of for the year. They have updated the on-site design for homeowners. There's a manual, I believe it's online, so that's been updated. They had received some community feedback about site evaluation guidance, and so that's been updated as well. They've been continuing to support our code compliance and supporting George in some of the work that he's doing. And doing a lot of work this time of year around the Foundational Public Health Services funding. So environmental health is tasked with participating on 5 different core teams. And so supporting the state in planning around drinking water, safe communities. There's some land use planning in there as well, and some data management. So supporting those groups so that we continue to get funding to support the work that we're doing in those areas. So that's kind of what environmental health is up to. Clinical health, we just actually received drug take-back mailers. So people can come into either lobby of the health department and pick up a drug take-back mailer. The instructions are in there. So if you have extra medications at home that you want to dispose of safely, you can come pick up a mailer, follow the instructions in the mailer, and then ship them home. So we're providing those now. And those are prepaid postage. So you just literally have to pick up the envelope and then it's all taken care of from there. We do have 2 fairly large audits coming up this spring and summer. So we have our WIC audit that's coming. It's actually not scheduled yet. They're going to just give us a 60-day notice, but we anticipate that that will be sometime this spring. And then our sexual reproductive health audit is going to be in June. We do this every 2 years. It's a pretty robust audit. And there will be it takes a lot of time and energy to make sure that we have things squared away in the manner that they feel like we should. So we'll be focusing a lot on that. The nursing staff are partnering with the Fort Vancouver Regional Library to provide some health education at the library. Initially, they're going to start this project in Goldendale. And once they get kind of their process dialed in from there, they're going to go ahead and bring that same programming over to the White Salmon Library as well. There's going to be a focus on lead testing for our WIC clients over the next year. The state's really pushing that. We had initially set that up probably about a year ago, I think. And now we're really getting what the guidance is going to require them to be tested at 12 and 24 months. And that as those WIC clients are coming back in the office, that will be a big part of providing and facilitating that testing for those clients. So that's what we have for clinical health. Administratively, currently we're fully staffed, mostly currently staffed. I do need to, so we've contracted with a dietitian for the last, I don't know how many years, at least 20 that I can think of through Mid-Columbia Medical Center. And they are no longer able to meet our needs. And so we have ended our contract with them. We would like to fill the dietitian position as a casual position instead of a contract position. And with that position, we're going to ask for an alternate pay schedule. We are making the pay in alignment with the dietitian that's being paid in Skamania County, which is not in alignment with our current pay schedule. So any thoughts about that?
I guess this Commissioner Christopher, I guess for clarification, you're asking for potential pay rate change based off what Skamania County is paying. I guess for me moving forward, I'm kind of a fair across the board person and I would need to see what the pay is through HR with our comparable counties.
Okay, I can work with HR on that, but I will tell you, we have been paying $55 an hour. MCMC said if they wanted us to continue with them, they asked for $75 an hour. And then we called Skamania County and they're paying 65. And we felt that kind of the 65 was the middle of the road and fair, but I will get that information to HR for you.
Actually, we have Casey standing here. Did you want to weigh in on this, Casey, or no?
We have been discussing this.
Okay. I guess where I'm coming from is I just want to make sure it goes through correct channels. Because I don't want somebody else listening saying, well, they got this and I want to go that way. Yeah, okay. That's all I'm kind of, thank you.
Okay. Finance wise, we just, we redid all of our bars numbers. The public health was supposed to have updated the bars numbers in 2020. Obviously here we are 4 years later, and we got those done. Elizabeth in our finance department did a pretty huge lift to get those done. And then both the auditor's office, Nicole especially, and the treasurer's office really supported us in a huge way to get this updated. And it wasn't as quick or easy as a process as everyone anticipated, but we were able to get that kind of all done and squared away. So really streamlined our fiscal processes and brought them up to kind of where the state expected us to be 4 years ago. So we're pretty excited to get that done. And Pam also in Public Works was a huge support in getting that done. And then as far as contracts, I have one contract pending coming up. And that's just, we're extending the contract we have with Village Reach. They're doing an after action report, a COVID after action report that's required of us by the state. You've approved their contracts before. It's taking a little bit longer than anticipated. So we're we're just pushing the timeline out. So it'll look very similar when you see that to what you've seen already at least once before. So questions about public health?
Doing good. You have a very big world.
Yes,
You do
I
a great
do.
job.
Yeah, thank you. So for behavioral health, I just want to address again, because this keeps coming up, outpatient services are contingent on us having the funding to do so. We are funded to do crisis. We are providing crisis 24/7 in this county. Until we have the funding to set up outpatient services, we can't have them because outpatient services are very expensive. And for us to have plans with no money is frankly irresponsible. So we're working on that. We're going to initiate the negotiations with the Medicaid organizations. I believe next Friday is our first one. And so still working through the process of getting credentialed. It's still not being quick, easy, challenges at every turn with that. So it's definitely being worked on. We're really trying to aim for at least something outpatient by June, but also again, I can't promise that because again, it's contingent on funding and then frankly filling the positions, which, you know, can be a challenge as well. We did receive at the end of December $100,000 of enhancement money from Molina. That's just for us to use as we see fit to help build our program. With that, I now have enough money to buy furniture for the rest of the building. So you're going to go ahead, you'll start seeing the bills for and the requests for the furniture purchases to come through. So when you see those furniture requests, the funding's there for that. So that's, we're getting that finalized. We are working with XBO Health. You all signed the contract with them. They're going to help us find an electronic medical record. So we had our first meeting with them last week, and they're going to help us through the RFP process. They're going to help us with finding what's going to be a good fit for us and the EHR that we'll need to build on outpatient services. So we're looking at about a 6-month process likely with them. And so they're going to start interviews with staff in the next couple of weeks to determine what our needs are so that we can move forward there. We did get our first feedback from our Department of Health audit. There were some findings about our onboarding process. And I did not appropriately onboard people when they started, when we started the department, and they don't like that. And I'm expecting to get my hand slapped for that. So we've been going back and forth. We've given them how we're managing it from here on out. And I didn't onboard people in the way the state saw fit. So anyway, so once that report's finalized, I'll make sure that you have a copy, but that's the big part of that. The co-responder program, we're working through that. So we do have the DCR. We're still working with the sheriff's office to be able to get a date to get started with that. So they'll be able to, we have one DCR who will have the availability to be able to do a ride along with the deputy and potentially meet people where they're at in that specific scenario. We won't do community response outside of the co-responder program. But Lacey Villamar has done an incredible amount of work getting our policies and procedures put together, the program, the training that needs to be done. So that we're hoping will start in the next couple of months as well. We are looking at, we have $120,000 from Carillon to do workforce development. We're looking at how to use some of that funding to help with some recruiting, which will be around recruiting a couple more DCRs, and then as well as once we have outpatient services, that will help us with that. That will also help cover conferences and trainings. So there's been an interest expressed in that we attend the National Conference for Behavioral Health. That'll be in April. And that's really going to start laying the groundwork for our 5-year plan as far as getting our federally qualified, the community, I just forgot what the name of the acronym is, CCHB. It's essentially a federal a federal appointment to run behavioral health, that will really open up doors to funding and continuity. And it's frankly a really good model for this county. It would be a huge win for us. So that conference will kind of set the tone for that. So probably send 2 or 3 people to that to get that education and knowledge so that we can move forward with setting that up. Otherwise, I think that's all I have for behavioral health. Any questions?
Nope.
I'm here.
Good job.
Okay, sounds good. Pending any other questions, I guess I will see you all at 2.
If you wouldn't mind staying on, Director Quinn, I know you've got to get to Olympia, but we've got the HCA discussion. I don't know if you were on when we added that to the agenda. Okay.
I was not, no.
Okay, so glad to let you know. You want to kind of an
Yes.
update? So part of the LSC meeting was a discussion from HCA about where they're going and what they're working on. It was Jason McGill, who is I think #1 or #2 with the Healthcare Authority. And then he had 4 other individuals that are working on different projects. The best news is they have capacity funds that are lining up for planning and implementation. And that's in the $300 million. And one of those for technology and IT services, hiring of staff, and since Carmen's in the room, adoption of certified EHR technology, because they are going to be creating new requirements, because it sounds like there's a good chance that according to HCA, a lot of money we spend is because when individuals go into the jail, they lose their Medicaid. And so what they're working on is with the feds is that if you come into a county jail, you won't lose your, I think that's Aaron's or something scratchy. You won't lose your Medicaid services because the average time in jail is less than the 90 days. And so what they want to do is get the feds to agree that because the average time is less than 90 days, we'll just continue everybody in service. The prisons will be more difficult because the average time is over the 90 days. But they're working really well on it. And so I brought up during the meeting with Mr. McGill, I said, well, if you guys are going to be requiring this new EHR system and it has to be through your certified systems, well, we just went out for this last week for contractors for certified for EHR software. And I said, I don't want to pay for EHR software and then have you guys come in and say, you've got to have our EHR software and billing software. I said, is there any possibility that we could be your pilot project and we can jump to the front of the line and we'll be your test dummy? And he's like, that sounds amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Wouldn't that be awesome? I'm like, well, that sounds and then I said, is there any way that we could tie this in with behavioral health EHR software, because half of what we're doing in the jail is behavioral health, stuff. And he said he had an email come around, and I haven't got a chance because I believe the chief jail deputy has been out sick, but I want to set up a meeting with these guys and maybe start pushing on this so that maybe we don't have to go out for our own software and spend our money when we can spend the state's money. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that came up, and it was a really good conversation. And they also said that they're going to try to help us get through the behavioral health accreditation process that Director Quinn hasn't had a response from them for a while, I believe. Have you got a response back yet?
I have not.
So we're going to keep pushing on that, but it was a really, really good meeting. Especially if, of course, at the state, everything moves slowly. They're doing their state assessment. They've got their design, their planning, their capacity building. A lot of it was developed around juvenile, but they know that they're going further than that. So I know we've been talking about this for years. But to finally see movement on their side and to have the 300 million, so at least we know that there's money behind it at the state level. That's really amazing. And the packet should be in your email inbox. I sent it to BOCC. But would you please also send that email to Carmen and Bob at the jail? And then hopefully we can get a meeting set up with Director Quinn and you guys and HCA and say, how do we jump? We're ready to jump.
Yes.
I know that Lauren and Aaron had a brief conversation about tagging in with her on her project, so this is a perfect opportunity. She's got her hand raised. She would.
You're not muted.
Okay, I couldn't tell if Carmen was still talking, but I want to speak to the health record, and then because Carmen's in the room and you called her out, I remembered something I was supposed to say earlier that I want to add that I promised her I'd say today. So I've spoken both with Carmen and Lauren, and I spoke with Lauren yesterday afternoon. And it sounds like Lauren he had been exploring the RFP process as far as what a medical record would look like. Our agreement just yesterday, because I didn't have the luxury of time. I needed him to kind of tell me yes or no right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move forward with our XBO Health. I'm going to see if they have if the EHRs available have a medical module available. So it would be behavioral health and physical health together. And if they can do that together, then certainly that's something we could work. There's just a plethora of reasons why it would be a great idea to share. And then unless Lauren finds something that he likes better in the interim, so we're going to keep having the conversations. We're going to work together on it, but he's going to do his homework as well. I'm going to see what I come up with, and then we'll definitely compare notes. And then obviously it will be the jail's decision if it's a good fit for them or not, because they're going to have very different needs than what we do. So that's the healthcare. And then also we are, again, I forgot to say this, so Carmen, thanks for reminding me, continuing to have some pretty epic struggles with transportation, getting behavioral health clients out of this county. So on Sunday, I think it was Sunday, all my days have run together in the last week, Carmen called to let me know that the posse wasn't able to help us with the transport, which I mean, I thank you, Carmen, for calling. We really appreciate that, but it's still not their job to transport these folks for us. They have bent over backwards. They're taking volunteers. Like, I cannot say enough good things about the work they've done for us, but it is not their job to be doing this. We're grateful, but it's not their job. And we have got to come up with another solution. Out of, I think, 48 transfers that we've had out of this county, the EMS, the ambulance district, has transported 4. The posse at this point has transported over 10. We're regularly looking for other options. So I just wanted to remind the board that this is still an issue, that there still isn't a good resolution, and it's getting just insanely frustrating I mean, Carmen, I felt like she was frustrated as I was that we cannot get people to the care that they need in a timely manner. And I will say Sunday, the weather was really bad, and we did understand that they might have to wait till the next day to get out of the county, but that's still, we still have to come up with a solution to get these people moved.
Director Quinn, that is just the 48 number is not the voluntary. That's just the involuntary, right?
That's all of the people that we've had to transport out of the county.
I would certainly hope we're not. I was gonna say, I would certainly hope we haven't had 48 involuntaries. That's a big number.
I mean, I can tell you how many we've had really quick. Just 2 seconds.
On
I didn't have that tab open. It's pretty close.
Yeah, no,
55, actually. So we've provided transportation for 52 of the 55, 4 with EMS. We've had AMR, an outside ambulance company, come in 18 times. And then we've had to figure out, the posse's done 12. So.
Also, if I could just say real quick, it's not always.
Thank you.
It's not always posse members doing the transport. It is reserve deputies and it is paid employees from the jail that are assisting. So it is costing us money, but again, like we said earlier, it's the right thing to do. So I hope we can come up with a solution. Maybe they drive Nelly, I don't know. So we have to do something soon.
I recall our last conversation with the EMS board. It sounds like we need to have another one.
I agree. And maybe a more pointed conversation.
If I mean, if this board wants to continue having conversations with the EMS board, it can. I think you'll be in the exact same place next year and 5 years from now and 10 years from now. It's a philosophy. It's a difference of philosophy and opinion. I appreciate what they do, but they have a different opinion, and their opinion is they should not be transporting mental health patients. So, I mean, we can talk about it until we're blue in the face. It doesn't give us anything different than what we currently have.
I would like to schedule another talk with them myself. Whoever's at the top responsible, I'd like to talk about pointing case corner. This is one of my concerns over elected. It would be another, what kind of service do you really get for your people?
EMS is not elected, so they have no, they don't have to do anything. They're appointed by us.
So they're appointed, but we have a problem between how the funds are spent or allotted. What's the difference there? Explain that.
The EMS district was set up by the Board of County Commissioners to be appointed by us.
Yes.
We have no jurisdiction or oversight over their budgets. And technically, we don't have any oversight or jurisdiction over who gets appointed. They make a recommendation to appoint and we say, okay. And that's where it is. They are an independent group of people that have an independent philosophy, and that's why I've always said that if they were appointed, they would be accountable to the people. Where currently they are not accountable to the people, which would be my same argument for the coroner. I want the coroner to be amenable to the people, and the people be able to go to their elected official when they have a problem, versus an appointed person where they're going to come to me over a coroner and I'm going to say, hey, I don't know coroner stuff. I don't know cause of death stuff. I can't help you. That's why I believe it should be elected, so they can be accountable to the people. But we've had that conversation here before too.
Right. And I still would like to have the EMS board, the heads of the EMS, because I have a further conversation with them about choices and serving the public. So I'd like them to come in and visit. Jake?
I'm always willing to have people come and chat. I think we now have a year's worth of transports and documents, and I think it's a good time to have that conversation about, we have volunteers that are taking on liability and the county taking on liability to transport people who are medically necessary to go to a medical facility. And we have doctors that are saying that it's medically necessary for them to be transported involuntarily, meaning they've had their rights taken away. We've got to figure it out. We've got to make some inroads here.
Right, but I believe if this board remembers correctly, the EMS's opinion is that if the patient is under the influence of a drug administered by the hospital, then they believe it is their jurisdiction to transport. But if they feel that if the patient is not under a drug administered by medical professionals, driving them to a facility is more like a taxi service, and they're not a taxi service. So I think that's where they draw the line on where they transport and where they don't transport, is whether that patient is under medication by the hospital. So again, you could bring up that question on the next time we talk to
Yeah.
them, but that is the understanding I have.
And I think a continued conversation would be good. Time has passed. We have more documentation. We have a better idea what the needs and what they would like to serve, but maybe we can come to a compromise.
And I think the other part of that is, these are long distance transfers. And the EMS district looks at it as they're gonna lose a lot of money on this. Because most of these are Medicaid patients, and that Medicaid, the reimbursement for that mileage is very little. So that's, a greater conversation at the state and the HCA, or maybe with the MCOs, or Carleon, in order to find some dollars to help pay them. And then they might be a little more amenable to bringing in, sending one ambulance and then calling in their reserves, and they're, because they're supposed to have people that can come in if, multiple ambulances go out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Erin. I think. Anything else from your side? Jen?
Nope, that's it. And I'll be back at 2.
Okay,
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
great. So I see we have Casey is leaving. I see if you had anything else. And Carmen, do you have anything?
No, I just want to thank everybody. It's been quite a weekend for last weekend. It's been amazing to watch everybody come together and conquer what we've been able to conquer. I see our public works department in the city, everybody gets bashed because they're not plowing the roads, and I know for a fact that they are. It's just interesting.
So the public can hear you, please. Thank you, because it is important.
Right. So in the challenges that the jail has faced, all the departments come together. We were out there in the middle of the night working on things, trying to get things done, and the public has to understand that we do the best we can under the circumstances we face. I had deputies out, cutting trees out of roadways. I had, deputies coming in and helping meet up with Rob so we could get the supplies for the jail that we needed. It's a community that comes together in the time of need. And it very much frustrates me to see the bashing that goes on the keyboard warriors. People aren't plowing, they're not doing this. Well, we all are. There's just thousands of miles of road and only, so many people. So kudos to everybody who come out and worked through this, whether they were working from home or not. I think that with the thaw, who knows what's to come next, but we've overcome a lot and we'll learn from it and do better next time. That's all we can hope for, and hope that Mother Nature gets on some Prozac soon.
Well, and she was mad. She was very mad.
angry.
Yes, she was.
Yes, she was.
Angry to work with. Hey, and I have to commend you guys for how you all work together. The communication that went on, and EMS is not in this room, but they're still working, and it's untold hours
Right.
and no sleep. And I saw and dealt with a lot of things they were going through too. And it
Right.
was incredible the way you all kept everything going.
And it is a struggle. I mean, the jail faced challenges that we've never faced
Mhm.
before. But we figured it out.
Mhm.
Was it all ideal? No, but we got through it. So
I think we can say you have to be tough to live in Klickitat.
I
Yeah.
agree.
After this one.
And we all made a choice to live here, so we all
Yes.
got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, but thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. The National Weather Service has issued a dense fog advisory for the white salmon, and I believe this area until 2 p.m. today. So
So
be
hurry up,
safe.
hurry up and go away.
I know
Yeah.
it wasn't a fun drive this morning.
No, I want it to be gone before everybody goes home today. Anything else?
Not on HCA. And I think between the HCA and everything else, I covered the LSC meeting unless there's any questions from my seatmates. A lot of what Zach said, the WASAC succeeded. They got all their priorities done. And so now it's like, well, what are we focusing on? And so it's right now we're being reactionary. And then the question is what are we going to be tackling this next year? And a lot of time was spent on, how we pick what projects we're going to tackle. But one thing I wanted to bring forward to the board and make sure we're all in agreement is we saw the white paper that came out on the taxation on renewables. And the white paper is a good place to start. And I would like to put that forward as one of the priorities for next biennium is getting that fixed, if my seatmates would agree.
Mr. Christopher?
I guess I would say I would encourage ideas on how to fix that. And I would be very curious to see who will be at the table discussing and engineering ways to fix that. Hopefully a whole different crew than was at the table on the last time it was tried to be fixed.
Yeah, I figured likely we'll have to take a very active role in that and then also bring in the assessors. It's not something that just we can fix. It's something that we have to bring the assessors in on and then make sure that the legislation is coming from in essence WASAC and not coming from industry, as we saw where a lot of that discussion went on the last turnaround.
A second go around on this is good. And I would say yes, I think that should be a priority that we bring forward. We get a lot of questions from the public on that too.
We do. And in any other priorities that my seatmates would like, that you guys would like to see, and maybe we can get started with white papers so that, in the meantime, we're pushing that so that's moving forward.
Great. Anything else today, Mr. Christopher, for you for this morning session?
The only other the big, we agree on almost all things. I think the only thing that at the WASAC meeting that there was really disagreement between large counties and small counties was that small engine rule. And we actually took it to a vote on whether to be opposed to it or just leave it as concerns or other. The staff recommendation was to remain with concerns so that we can go in there and try to get more fixes done on it. Versus if we're just opposed, it kind of takes us out of the conversation. They're like, well, we're going to do it anyways, from the WASAC perspective. And being that, the big counties have their views, the vote was to remain concerns so that they can try to fix all of the issues with that.
Good to know.
I did say though that I was with Amanda McKinney from Yakima County that tying legislation to another state's rules, that was too far because they could change it to whatever they want and then we'd have to follow suit.
And I can't tell you them off the top of my head, but I had heard about two others that were from another state that were potentials that we're trying to follow. So, yeah, not a good way. Okay.
And my other update, the Hood River Bridge received $200 million in an infra grant for the construction and design and construction of the Hood River Bridge. That is almost the largest infra grant in the US in the history of infra. It is, it's really amazing. $200 million is a lot of money when there was only about 1.5 billion in the whole nation. The infra I will put for the public, the infra was created by Senator Maria Cantwell, back in 2015. And between infra, mega, rural, I-5 got 600 million in the mega project. The mega program was created by Senator Patty Murray. Infra was created by Maria Cantwell. Having legislators, a federal delegation, that is it, they are at the top of, they're the chairman of those committees, pays off. I hope to have, for tomorrow, there is a Q&A for Facebook Live on the Hood River Bridge. We'll be able to answer questions, but I'm hoping by then staff will be able to get me the information on if that $200 million, if we had to take a loan out to pay that, how much that would raise each trip across the bridge, just paying that off over 30 years, and then including interest on that. It's a huge, huge mark. At this point, we now have $320 million in federal and state grants that are appropriated or baked in. The overall bridge total is 520 million. And with our 320, we only have 20 from Oregon. And in the 2025 session, we are expecting a transportation package, much like Washington did, where we got the 75 from Washington. And so when we get up there, if the goal is 125 million from Oregon, 125 million from Washington, and then the federal government was, 200, the feds stepped up. You don't see that very often where they step up before either state has put in their full share, which is huge because now Oregon is going to really get pushed to come to the table with theirs. And then what we'll use with the rest of the dollars is a federal TIFIA loan.
Okay.
We had, a big bridge meeting yesterday where even the detractors, the people who said this will never happen, before I die, even they are saying there's really no chance that it won't happen.
That's awesome. Turn that corner.
And I can also say that yesterday was the final applications for the progressive design build contractors. And we had 3 applications submitted by 5 o'clock. We were hoping for 3. So the engineering group will spend about the next month working on picking one of those to move forward. So it was probably one of the best days I've ever had.
Big burden off. It'll be interesting to see the design finally. Final.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
So any questions?
Maria Cantwell and her staff are very attentive to our county. And since I've been here, I've sat through many meetings with them coming in to see where we're at, what we need. I'd like to send them a thank you card from our board if we could. Thank you.
So we're talking for the bridge.
Correct.
I would say, we had both senators submit letters of support. We also had Representative Newhouse,
Okay.
Representative Maria Glusenkamp Perez. If we send those letters of support, I think we could send one individually to each of them or letters of thanks from Klickitat County. We're going to do it from the Bridge Authority, but I think the county definitely should as well.
Right. Could you give that list to the girls?
Yeah.
Email it to them. Make sure we
Absolutely.
don't miss anybody.
And I guess the next question would be do we want to send individual letters to our Oregon delegation as well, because they all supported it.
Whoever needs a thank, that was a big deal.
Mr. Christopher, are you in favor of that?
Well, thank you for asking. Yes.
Yes, you're in favor.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Any more business? Nobody?
If you have any questions on the bridge, I'm happy to answer them, or sign in tomorrow for the Facebook Live event. It's at 5 o'clock. You can go to the Hood River Bridge. I think it's hoodriverbridge.org and it's right there. You can click the link. I can also send the link if somebody wants it.
Thank you. So if we have nothing else, we can adjourn for lunch.
Yeah, I mean, what are we gonna do really from 1 o'clock to 2? Do you think we're gonna fill that in all the way or?
Would you like to just keep going forward and then
Well, no, I mean,
how do you feel about having lunch and coming back for WSU program? I have a conversation. And then
For me, I don't need an hour and 45-minute lunch. So if we want to cover some of this now, I'm fine with it.
Sure, that's great.
well, we still have our Board of Health meeting at 2, so we're
That's right.
kind of, and we're stuck doing it at 2, so. But I'm fine with just going now,
Sure.
because either way, you're gonna have it one side or the other.
Okay. So we're going to move to unfinished business. We'll move it forward. We have 2 items. The first one is the WSU program menu. And we've been discussing our continued contract with WSU for services within our county. Of course, everybody loves 4-H. That was not a question going forward in the future to keep that contract in place and keep moving. But we have a chance to make decisions on the other items that WSU can supply to our county. And we had shared a list of what was available from WSU. And we also received a packet on what our WSU representative, Hannah Bruce, had been working on over the past years. And thick packet. She's been very busy and has extensive education and can offer a lot of help in our county. Did you receive that packet, Mr. Christopher? Okay, did you have time to go through qualifications and see, and kind of, do you want to look at this?
I've got an email, but it looks different than what you have on yours.
Okay.
I've got 4 pages.
Oh, go ahead. This is 2 that she sent as a email to
Maybe
me.
there's 2.
Yeah, there might be 2 of them. One was big and one was small. You're right.
I don't see the other. No,
It-
I don't see the big.
In the bigger packet, she listed year by year from about 2017 forward of items she'd worked on. And she'd not only worked for Klickitat County, but Skamania County, and also in Oregon, and also on many, many, many boards, fielding things. So I kind of looked through it and looked at what applies to our county and what applies to things that I think our people would be interested in seeing as services. And I went back to the WSU list and kind of highlighted programs that I felt that I'd heard from people they were interested in. We hadn't had them running for quite a few years. And there were also community and economic development items that I felt would be helpful. Some things that we'd talked about in the past were citizen surveys and needs assessments. And that's something that we didn't feel we could undertake without hiring a contractor. So that's something that's on the list that WSU can help with. Emergency management and extension disaster education. That's something WSU would help with help us prepare better emergency management plans, something that I've talked to our EMS service about, that we don't have a lot of things in place, and it's something that's on my agenda that I'd like to see us get solid plans in place. Something else I heard today was grant writing. And that's something that she's been involved in heavily in the past in a lot of different places. So grant writing and possibly grant management would not be a problem through this WSU program. And that would help us maybe from doubling down somewhere else. Other programs that I heard about that hadn't been in our county for some time are master gardeners and food safety. It's been many years since Susan Kerr was here that we did some really cool food safety programs. A lot of people are interested in canning and preserving these days. And so they are able to set aside and have nights where they allow women to come in and help you with how do we process foods and can them safely? Those are just things I was interested in. I don't know what you two had. Childcare development had also been heavy in Hannah's background, plus WSU. We're working on those boards to try to help with Gabrielle, and some others to move into childcare development. And I think I saw in Hannah's resume, she'd already been on a couple of those boards. So maybe for us, we need to formalize more what we would like that position to do and reach back out to Hannah and to WSU to see how they could fill those gaps for us of things. I'm kind of looking for things that we already have this relationship with WSU. What could we plug into there that we didn't feel like we've been able to fill in the last few years? There's a big coordination for homelessness, drug abuse. We've been having those county city meetings with all the programs at the table, trying to figure out where do we go, what do we do with this. There's a lot of grants available out there, a lot of money out there, but it takes somebody with expertise and time. That might be something we could ask for. Could you help us in that section? Not only design some programs, but help us find that money. Because that's the bottom line. It always comes down to, we can think up good ideas, but we have to have the money to implement them. So grants, even like Aaron was talking today, and I was thinking, is there a possibility of coordinating through the WSU program to help with some of Aaron's holes that she needs to fill? Mr. Christopher, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I do not like the idea of WSU having a role in county government's grant writing or facilitating of how our departments run. So I respectfully understand where you're going, but I disagree.
And in the past, just so you know, it was a large part of their history in the past through MCED and other resources that we're connected with. They have cooperated with that role already, helping find those grants and write those grants. But we're heavy in MCED, as I'm on the board, and Richard works with MCED. So we have a lot of coverage at MCED. I was just thinking if we could alternatively plug that WSU person with expertise in somewhere else where we don't have the personnel, and we were talking about hiring somebody. If we have somebody that has grant writing expertise and background, we could plug them in a lot of our departments that are lacking. They'd like to apply for money, but they just don't have time. And I hear it from the sheriff even. We're always continually asking them to go out for grants, and they don't have the staff. And management then becomes a burden after you get the grant too. So I was hoping to look for a way to increase that end that we haven't got plugged in. Your thoughts, Mr. Anderson?
I just only briefly able to go over the resume.
Yeah, it's very extensive.
It's very, very extensive. And I know that Ms. Browse has been very effective at getting grants in the past. And her writing skills are absolutely amazing. I guess from my perspective, I need to know, we have our budget. We have an agreement with WSU. We're now moving to talk about the person kind of, and what we want that person, I mean, I'm saying person, but it's the job to do. But don't we need to finalize the agreement with WSU? I mean, wasn't our goal to get that done by the end of 2023 for 2024? I understand, like, we can ask for different directions, but I don't think that's going to change the costs per se, you know, unless we're bringing in somebody else or there's going to be something else that
Right.
comes in.
And that was my conversations with WSU. They needed to know where our focus was so that they could adjust within the contract and the money we already have, or if they had to find somebody else that would. So they had asked us to choose what is our direction, where do we want to go from here? Because we were kind of the ones that stated we didn't know what they were offering or what they did. So we opened up that conversation. 4-H will not be a split out contract all the way per se. So in order to move forward and get our 4-H contract all the way done, we have to pick things from this menu and say, what is Klickitat County's focus on what we would like our relationship to be with WSU? What are we looking for them? And they're willing to offer any services off this menu. We just have to decide within our range, what are we interested in? And I think if we pick and then have further conversations with them, they'll tell us if we're within our budget range or not.
Right, and I guess I'm confused because I can go through this list and say, sure, master gardener's great, animal agriculture's great, you know, farm management great, pest safety great, you know, and I can go, but I would go into emergency management, disaster education. That's emergency management's area of expertise, not a teacher's area of expertise. So I disagree there, but I also look at this list and I look at Hannah's list and I don't see broadband on here. I don't see PPE distribution expert on this list. I don't see childcare board. I mean, if she wants to do those things on her own accord, as a citizen, I have no problem with
They
that,
were in
but
her second packet.
well, I'm just going off of what I was given.
Okay. I'll make
From
sure
her
that
on the things that she's worked on, and a lot of these things are not on this list. So to me, I would like to have this list and check off the boxes that we feel we would like that person to do. And those are it. And any of those little side things that she wants to do as a citizen, feel free,
And
but
I
not
think
as your
that's what she's done.
WSU position.
No, that's
Well,
what
it-
she's done.
It's on the WSU report.
And I would disagree with emergency management as a teacher. Hannah, if she ends up being that person, has a broader thing in her resume where she does qualify to assist with our department. She would not be directing our department, or she would maybe fit into, I'm just saying, fit into a place maybe that would help them with grant writing, that would help them attain some more funding. That's where we could plug Hannah in with her background that I saw. It isn't that I would expect her to be managing a department at all for us. And I know citizen surveys were something you had explored earlier. But we couldn't do them. We couldn't plug the money into them. So we do have a resource with WSU. If we want citizen survey, we have somebody that's capable of doing it through WSU. Yes.
Can't find it in my emails.
That's
Gonna
okay.
get it at lunch.
There's so many now.
So we used to have master gardener program
Mhm.
and we used to spend money on it, I believe. And we didn't have the money, and I think the Dow still has master gardener,
Do you?
but I don't think anybody else does. Would I like it?
The attendance is a problem.
Right. Would I like it? Sure. Are we doing it? No. Are we gonna spend more money to do it?
Maybe.
That's okay.
Those are just my suggestions.
Okay, so the ones you put in
Yeah,
yellow.
those are just things that I liked and that I would go to, and that I've heard people ask about. Other ones were suggestions because I'd seen holes in our department struggling. We even talked about scanning today. And I know when you start scanning, you have a problem with, you have to have the employee and you have to have a dedicated person that helps do that scanning. Document retention.
Um,
What does scanning have to do with WSU?
I think that it is a business background entity that that person from supplied by WSU could go into a department, work with the director, and they can say, we're using your time and energy because we want to put all of these scans on our, whatever way we choose to scan for that department. And that could be the plug-in person that stops that department from having to use their employees for that.
I don't think that's a service that they offer here.
It's within, I think if we ask for it, it is within the business background service that they're capable of. If you take a person with a specific background and has education in managing administrative things for businesses, they're certainly capable of scanning if that's something we need to fill.
Well, I would be very intrigued if WSU signed off on their employee doing scanning for us for the year. That would be, I would be.
It's more than just standing at a machine and acting like a secretary scanning. You have to have a little bit of background expertise to understand what documents are crucial, what are not, be able to help that director work through how to preserve crucial documents.
So when I look through what Hannah wrote for what she's been doing, which is what we were all looking for because we didn't know. When I look through it, she's been doing a lot of these different things. You know, working with the Dalles Mountain Ranch. Well, that's animal agriculture. That's rangeland management, you know, farm management. She's been on pesticides. She's got on crop and soil, food safety. You know, she's doing a lot of these things, and broadband access, digital initiatives, digital equities is one of the example programs, and she's been working on that. I mean, I guess.
I think where my frustration and frustrations from the past with the program came, and people, you know, it was said, we don't know what's being done, is we're doubling down in many places. We've all agreed we have economic development. We have a high concentration working with MCED. Those are all things Hannah listed in her resume that probably aren't necessary for us to have her doing. And if we could utilize her skills in other places to get us something rather than hiring contracts or just not doing things, we're going to be better off using that money at WSU for that. Pesticide things and stuff. We've had our weed control things. But we also have heavy burdens in childcare, trying to get those programs up and running. We don't have the money and we don't have the employee to sit on those boards or work those things through for us.
And
So
she's
there are-
been sitting on them,
Correct,
right? Yeah.
correct.
I guess my whole thing is, if your thing is and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're doubling down and we have multiple people, then to me, it isn't so much adding, we wanted to do this, this, and this. You need to go through that list and tell me what you don't think she needs to be working on anymore, because we have somebody currently doing that.
Correct.
So that to me is step one, not, you know, if this board feels that MCED is working on broadband, or the broadband team is working on broadband, our economic development is working on broadband, we don't need WSU working on broadband, and you want to remove broadband, boom, I need to know it. If, yeah, I mean, if you feel there's double down, we need to know what areas.
Well, and that's.
We can't add more duties. I need to know what duties we're removing.
And
so I know how much time there is to add what more duties.
And I have suggested several that we've doubled down on, and we've had this conversation a couple of times already. We know we're doubled down in economic development and some other areas. I'm trying to move past that now and pick what we're not doubled down on. And if we go through the list and say, I don't see where we're offering that, like I checked Master Gardener because that was important to me. Mr. Anderson brought up that was a program we had, and yes, it's important to a lot of the people in our county. They love it and they show up, but it did cost us more money. So that gives that a negative for me, that probably would not be one we'd ask for. Then we have to stay within our parameters. So finding things on this list so we can quit kicking the can down the road on this contract that is now due. We need to find some things that we all agree on so we can say back to WSU, this is where we'd like to focus. And then they are going to write us up the contract.
Right, I don't disagree,
do.
but we can't add 10 more things to the list when Hannah's already got a full-time job. You have to actually remove things from the list if you're gonna add new things to the list.
You're going to have a new contract. And if you add the things to the list that are our focus, that's where WSU will focus this program. That's
So-
old history.
So you're
That's
saying
just saying where
ignore
they-
what she does,
No,
go through this list.
what she
check
does
what
has
you want us to
sunset.
do.
What she does has sunset.
Okay.
The
got it.
contract is over.
So should we just go through these things one at a time and
Sure.
get a consensus on what we think should be worked on? And then everything that's not checked off is not something we want WSU to work on. Is that your point?
What I'd like to do, is, because it's the first time I've seen this, I just saw the special projects and this is far more.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is
This-
go through this and then under each one of these, put it in there so that we know what's been done for the last few years under each one of these.
Okay.
Because I don't want to make just a decision and be like, oh, I don't think we need somebody else is doing this.
Right.
When we might not actually have someone doing that, it might be a little section outside. It's kind of like, I look at the WSU thing a lot, like how how the other WSU part is. We do a portion of economic development. Lorena works in a different portion of economic development that works with a much smaller organizations on a much more personal scale than the big economic development that our staff tends to do. And I want to make sure that before we're making decisions, we know exactly what's been done and where it fits into these. And then we can say if there's any that we want to go away or if there's any we don't want worked on. Because I need.
And I'll
I
make
need to
sure
see
that you get a copy of this. I agreed because that's what I did with this document.
Oh,
I
you
went
you've
through it.
already did?
Yes, I did. And that's how I made my choices here.
Okay.
So.
Yeah,
I
because the only
compared it
documents I have is
Is,
the WSU handout you gave
Okay.
us last time and what's in the email from Hannah that was sent to the board of her 4 pages of what,
Elise, do you
storage
have
food
that
and structure.
one
work
from
group.
Hannah with the 2 documents attached? You haven't? Okay, let me see if it didn't come to you and we will.
So if you could print and
Yeah,
distribute,
Yeah,
then
we'll
we can
get it
have
to
a
you.
better conversation. Because
works.
that's where I was at. I understand Hannah works on things that aren't necessarily written on this list. And I'm not saying those things are bad. Some of them are very good. And I don't want to say, don't do that when I don't know what it is, which was the reason why I wanted to go through what she does and say, okay, I don't know that we really need you working on the broadband equity group unless you want to work on that as a civilian.
Mhm.
That's fine, but don't claim it as a work thing. We want you to spend your hours working on, farm management, kind of a scenario. But I don't know how many hours she works on this thing or that thing. And you look at her list there and I have to try to match it up to WSU's list and a lot of things just don't match. So it's like, I would be making decisions without all the information. I didn't make the decision.
Great. I'll make sure everything is forwarded again and it gets to you.
Okay.
Kind of like all the food groups. I mean, we have 9 million WAGAPs around this county and food banks and everything
Right.
else. Do we really need WAGAP as a part of that? Maybe. I mean, if she wants to serve on it as a civilian, but is that really a WAGAP function? Is WAGAP bringing money to the table? Who
I
knows?
just sent it. Mhm.
Okay. We'll work on that, hopefully over a little bit over lunch, maybe. Would you
Sure.
like to move on?
Yes, let's move on. We have a application for the Klickitat Technical Committee Board. Patrick Hayden.
This is what I mentioned last week that we have one member of the TC who's moving on. I think she's going to work for the Forest Service. And so the tribe is putting forward Patrick Hayden's name. And so my motion would be to approve.
I saw the applicant. I understand it is the tribal consultant. I do have concerns. Once again, appointing someone that I guess I need to make the motion.
Yeah,
To
don't
second
mess
to
me
have
up.
discussion. Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to mess you up. I will
Okay.
I will second the motion in order to have discussion.
Thank you. Discussion, please. Go
Thank
ahead.
you for my out of order comments.
Okay.
Being corrected, I appreciate that. No, my concerns are out of county residents being on our advisory committees. I have a problem with that. But as this is the Yakama Nation's representative, I am not going to intervene or take issue with who they want to serve as their person or liaison. I wish they could find somebody that actually lives in the county, but yeah, that was my only concern, not that the person's qualifications or anything else. So I have no problem and I will be voting to approve.
I guess I can give, if Chair allows. In the technical committee, you do not serve the organization, you serve the profession. We have had many members of the technical committee over the years that might live in Hood River but work for the Forest Service, but they're a hydrogeomorphologist where we don't have any that are locally. And so, and when you vote and you score and you rank, you don't rank, your comments are all based on your technical skills and profession. And so that's how it's designed. You, at the Citizens Review Committee, then there is organizations that are represented. But there's a flavor difference between the TC and the CRC, and that is all within our lead entity strategy and plan and requirements and bylaws and all that stuff.
And technical is really, really hard to find. It's hard to find those people. We've looked for them before in the past for our county and it's tough. And I can tell you, I saw in his resume that he works with David Lindley with Yakama Nation, and they're housed down on the Klickitat River at Wakayakas. They have their shop and their building and their office. So I'm quite sure he's familiar with the Klickitat River and all of its attributes and its projects. And he probably drives in county to work at that office a lot of times.
Like I said, I have no qualms about his professional attributes. I just wish all the people that sat on all of our boards lived in the county.
But you seconded?
I did.
Correct. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
I
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes for the Klickitat Technical Committee Board application for its new appointee, Patrick Hayden. And we'll have a letter to go to Mr. Hayden. Thank you. Okay, next week. Great. Well.
now we just got to figure out what to do between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock.
You could work on the WSU and come
I
back.
could work on the WSU.
Sure.
You got to give me the packet of paperwork that you
It
have
got
before
sent
I
to
can do
you.
it.
It's in your email box.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
yeah, we have things to sign. So.
Did we want to come back at 1 for general discussion, or do you want to adjourn until, or recess until 2 o'clock? What does the board feel?
If we came back at 1 and do people have time for their lunch period to do the WSU? To look at that? Would you like to bring that back at a later time? Do you need more time?
I guess for me, this is great. We're making progress. I still want to focus on getting the contract agreement between us and WSU, because currently we're operating without a contract.
Right, and they will not do the contract until we have these into them of what we'd like them to
Okay.
provide to
All right.
us. That's why we're doing this.
I would, I guess I'll make a motion to recess until 1:30.
Mr. Christopher?
Okay.
Motion to recess till 1:30?
I will second the motion with a friendly amendment that hopefully everybody will have the opportunity to look at this purple binder and have discussion on it when we come back.
I don't know
Let
what
me
the
hand it
purple
to you.
binder is. Yeah. I'm fine with that. I would just say that when we come back, we'll be in new business.
Okay,
Okay,
so discussion done.
I have no more discussion.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes to recess until 1:30 with the coming back through into new business, correct? Was it new business? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. We'll call the regular business meeting of the Klickitat County Commissioners back into order. So what would you like to start with?
Commissioner Christopher asked to start with, was it the purple?
He has the purple folder. Mhm.
Thank you.
Did you looked at it already? Back, I looked at it.
I guess I will point out my concerns. When one travel for one individual is more than entire departments and staffs for one event. When we are in the financial situation we are currently in, I understand that I will probably be the only vote that doesn't feel like it is appropriate, but I thought I'd bring it up.
Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
You're correct. It is a fair chunk of change, but it was also budgeted and built into the 2024 budget. It was discussed for an entire year up until that. And I would likely make the statement that the meetings and the things that happen there may just be the thing that creates the creativity that helps us for the next years to come when it comes to budgeting. And knowing that that's going to be probably the biggest thing that we deal with over the next years. I'd say it's kind of like us spending time going up to Skagit County trying to lobby to keep or advocate, not lobby, advocate for keeping contracts that are worth $1 million. I see this in that same realm that the value that we're going to gain from it far exceeds the cost of going up there. I consider it investment.
Well, yes, and I remember when we had these conversations, and I am thankful that it was brought forward to us, pre-brought forward to us and approved. It wasn't an arbitrary decision or just, I'd like to go to this conference. It is incredibly valuable. The knowledge and the classes that are offered at that are crucial for government. And it doesn't serve just our department or one department going to a conference. This conference going to serve that position for everyone here at the county, for all departments. So I think it's a valuable conference worth what's being asked for. And it was budgeted. It was pre-budgeted.
Thank you. I do understand it was budgeted. It is in the 2024 budget. It is a piece of the 2024 budget that I voted no on. Which is why I believe I will be the only one not signing that document. But that's board discretion. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Nope.
Okay.
We don't need a vote, do we?
No. Just
Yeah.
need to sign.
Yeah, there's no vote that's needed.
No.
But I have no problem with you signing. I've been in meetings since we got out, so I have not had time to print out and go through that
Okay.
list. And if somebody else did it and had time to go through the whole list, I'd gladly use your list.
Mr. Christopher, did you have time to look at the WSU secondary document that was sent to you?
I did.
Great. Do you have any more conversation? Okay, thanks. Here's these. I don't need them. Thank you.
I guess, you've got yours lined out here, well, what your, let's call them priorities.
Okay.
Because I think things come up, like, because I know that she's done a lot in farm management, crop production, soil health. She goes to the Eastern Conservation District and puts on, when they do their annual meeting. I would hate to say, like, we don't want you to not do this, but I think it's better to say these are our priorities. And if there is something that we actually don't want you to do, we can make that point.
Okay.
Would that make sense?
Sure. And also if there's things that come up that are valuable that aren't on the priority that she feels are valuable, I just want to make sure we never go over budget. That would be my only, like an extended cost unless it's pre-authorized.
I would think if you add more job duties, you might have an ask for my budget.
We might, and WSU is going to do those calculations when we turn in.
That's what I was saying. If you were removing one thing and adding another, that's one thing, but if you're just adding more, I don't know that that will go over too well.
And the last contract was fairly vague. All it said was economic development, community development, and what else was it? There was something else that was in that contract. There were three things that were very broad. And so I think rather than saying we didn't know what was happening, I don't think we reached out and really discussed what our priorities were. Mr. Christopher, did you come up with anything off of this first menu list from WSU that you felt like could be a priority, that you feel like a priority for the county?
Again, unless we're removing things, I'm not willing to add things to the list because I believe there will be a higher cost for that. So if you want to trade something and remove something to add something, I can understand that. If you want to try to add something, I'm open to hearing what you want to add.
So I think there's a little bit of confusion because the first contract actually had agricultural and natural resources as a heading. And then she did go ahead and work on different things that she put in the resume that showed us what she'd been working on. And there was a second additive, and that was community and economic development. And the same thing, she showed the tasks, she showed the groups she was associated with. With the menu selection, we can actually go into that top heading, and we aren't essentially taking anything away because we never prioritized anything last time.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. What items do you have checked that you would like put in our topics for that contract? And then I can I see where you're coming from and may just agree outright. I may
Okay.
have other.
Well, I felt like we do quite a bit with the conservation district, with our own water resource issues, our animal agriculture, our pest management, rangeland management, farm management, pesticide safety, crop production. The only two things I saw in that list that could be offered that I felt like people have talked to me about before, why don't we have it any longer, were master gardener. And also I liked when they were here and did this food safety programs. So those were my two picks out of that agricultural and natural resources is what I would say I'd like to see as a priority for Klickitat County to offer.
Now, you were saying food safety was canning. Are we sure that's not food bank kind of work?
I do not know. I'd have to ask that question, but food safety fell under, when they did it before, fell under safe management of home canning.
Make sure you don't get botulism.
Mhm. Yeah, and then also ideas on how to do better preserved foods, and also temperatures in refrigerators, different temperature things that you need to hold foods at. It was just education on.
Okay.
um,
Okay, do you have the next block?
Community and economic development. Jake, would you like to add into these, or you want us to go forward? Okay. Community and economic development, I had community-oriented public safety. And I had added,
What is the community orientated public safety? Is that like neighborhood watch type scenario, or what is it?
We would have to ask for the detailed of what they consider that, but I had written down becoming a part of that. The bigger group that we have was Goldendale, the city of Goldendale, and those meetings we've attended with WAGAP and everyone, that if we had somebody attending that for homelessness, drug crisis, that would save us from potentially using an employee's time there. That
Well, I don't know that the county has a role in what's happening in Goldendale, nor do I
well, I see that.
personally want to facilitate WSU getting involved in politics in Goldendale.
Okay, I'll put a question mark by that one. I had extensive conversations with EMS about shoring up and creating emergency management, disaster plans and education. And that would have to be, we've talked about getting a larger group together to have those talks between IT, emergency management, the sheriff, the health department, and moving forward and getting a solid plan set for this county. And I think this weather event showed us we need some protocols for different buildings. We need protocols for different departments so they have a go-to. We had a few glitches and we covered them and we took care of it, but it would be nice if we had a protocol book for everyone to follow, especially if we have a super big emergency. And this was just a first blush at what an emergency really could look like. So I would be a fan going forward for Klickitat County, and it was on my agenda for 2024 to start working on what do policies and plans look like for our county during emergency times.
I guess I don't disagree. I believe there's emergency management plans that are currently in place, and if they need updated or policy decisions need to be made, I guess I worry who makes those policy decisions, an elected official or an appointed WSU person?
Yeah, no. Well,
So-
they would just be part of that board. We always stay the lead for our programs. They would be an additive to any of these programs, an
To me,
asset.
it's the part here where if they're trying to educate the public for the plan that the county is currently already set, that's one thing. But if you want them actively involved in making the plan, then I don't like that part.
Okay, they could be, one of my ideas was at the table because they've worked on some of these items already and can offer that background. They could be at the table to help guide the process. They could be at the table to help find grants possibly to support building that process. I believe they'd be an asset in that, but we can move on to if you have questions about that one. The only other one I came up with out of that group was citizen survey and needs assessment, because that was one we tried last year, but we really didn't have the funding for it. And in the resume, that has been done by WSU. They're able to facilitate citizen surveys and needs assessment and do the reach out. They have background in it.
I guess my concern with that one as well is who drafts the questions that are sent to the public. It could easily, I mean, the answer you get from a question is based on how you word the question.
Okay.
And if there's any kind of a political slant in the asking of the question, you're going to get different results.
Are there any of these on these two lists that you're in favor of?
I guess I would say I'm very cautious. Knowing what I know about current operation to expand and give more power and authority. I mean, sure, no, master gardening, fine, food safety, if you're talking canning and it's specifically spelled out what these things are, no problem. But like community oriented public safety, I kind of need to know what that is before I put it down. I need there to be a description of what are they doing. I don't want to just, I mean, because God, I can come up with things on both sides of the aisle for that one. One of them could be a lobbying group to lobby against the posse. Community orientated public safety because they disagree with the current way we're doing public safety. So I kind of need things spelled out before I just check a box. If you kind of get where I'm coming from anyway, I'm not
I hear you.
I'm not trying to not be obstructing. I'm cautious based on my
Well,
current knowledge.
do you have any input, Mr. Anderson, that you'd like to start with?
When I read the summary of accomplishments from 2022, and I look at things like the successful writing of a grant for the child care committee, something that we gets brought up on a regular basis. When I look at, there's been planning and progression over 5 years due to a 2017 needs assessment. And then over that time, continue to work on those things that fit many of those lists, as you go down through there. And for me, it's a bunch of stuff that we are not going to be involved in, whether it's really detailed things like the canning, or putting on many of the, where would that page go? Many of the presentations that are put on. And she focuses on the small farm dream. She focuses on buyer, seller, and she's focusing in a lot of these things that are economic development, but it's not economic development like what we do. It's economic development like trying to get people who might be a good farmer, getting that to market. And she's working with individuals and groups and giving publications and giving these things. And I'm totally fine with that. I mean, that's kind of WSU's thing. They're looking kind of like our SBDC person that's working individually with these people or in small groups. And I'm fine with all that. I don't need to make any changes. I don't have a problem. I guess where I'm coming with is I don't have an issue with the vast majority of the things that she's been doing in the past. I mean, broadband, well, I would usually say that's not something that I would have her working on, but yet WSU is working on a bunch of rural broadband stuff and is getting rural broadband dollars to do these studies, and having our extension agent be plugged in with that coming off of what WSU is doing is not a bad thing. So in a lot of this, because it's most of the things that you end up having to work on is soft money things. And so you kind of follow where the dollars go, and they changes from year to year to year. I really actually do like and appreciate, Commissioner Zoller, you just brought up, the needs assessment, writing the question or, doing something like that gets out to the community over how do you feel about this or whatever, rather than us spending all that time and effort doing it. I think that could be something that would work really good that we could ask for help with. Sure, I'm certain Commissioner Christopher is going to want to look at the questions before it goes out, but she could create the draft and do all the work and everything. And that's something that we don't have our staff doing or something else. I guess what it comes down to in the end, though, is she is a WSU employee who we have no direct supervision over. We can ask her to work on these things. We put money towards her, being here and working in the community. What I wanted when I first asked is I wanted to see what your accomplishments are and what you've done. And when I look between these two things, it's pretty darn evident that she's been working and doing a lot of things in this county that the county, the rest of county government has not done. And I can only say, that's great. Because those are things that would never even come across my, um, my desk, like small farm dreams and, agricultural marketing for small farms. That's not something we did when we actually had a natural resources department. That's something we didn't get into. Even it's not something economic development got into. So that's kind of, it fills a role in a niche that I see that's there. But again, I think we have a tendency to want to micromanage on this board, and that's not my personality type. And I don't want to get into the micromanagement. What I want to do is get the agreement back in place, and go forth and do good work. And if there's anything that the board doesn't want her at all working on, we give that as the direction. But that would be.
That's about kind of where I'm at. Because we have no oversight, and I think you're gonna find it very hard that we get to draft the questions. And if we have a problem with the wording, that she's gonna be like, oh, sure, no problem, use your wording. We have no oversight. I'm very hesitant to put more there, and I would also think that if you think that WSU is going to draft a survey and send a survey to 20,000 residents that we all know would cost $20,000, and they're going to do it for free, you might want to double check that. They might make some poll that can be thrown on Facebook that anybody in Seattle can click and give you skewed results. I'm not interested. I want to make sure that the poll is actually answered by people that live here. And so that's why I'm gravely worried about putting things like that in that position, because if you throw out a Facebook poll, which I can do tomorrow, and send it through Seattle's yuppie Facebook groups, I can give you 24,000 answers, but it doesn't mean they came from us. Hence the reason why when you go through a polling place, they can cross-reference the results with the voter database to make sure you have accurate, unbiased answers. I'm just not interested in a department that is previously shown they are political in nature, having more things to
Okay.
get political in nature over.
So I think in the interest of getting this contract back to WSU so they can get it in place and we preserve 4-H, which we all agree on and the public agrees on, and hearing Mr. Anderson and hearing Mr. Christopher and melding the two, I think if we go back to the contract with WSU, they send the person to do certain things within our county that they pick, and they're working for the best of Klickitat County, trusting under WSU's supervision that that's happening for our county. The only thing I would like to ask is that we build a good relationship with this person. And I would, not micromanaging, I'd really like to hear from them, and I'd like to have them come in, maybe not once a month, once every 2 months, once a quarter, and tell us the good things we're doing. So we don't have to have this conversation again about that. We didn't feel that we knew what was going on out there. And then we maybe potentially could suggest things at that time and build that relationship and that trust with them, that they work towards things that we are really excited about.
I can agree with that. I would love to have a quarterly update with like this last email list that that I did this, I did this, I did this. I worked with, Miss Rowe at WAGAT for the childcare thing. It allows me to see those things and fact check that data.
Okay. And status quo on the dollars in the.
We built and passed a budget.
So,
And
yeah,
that budget, I
it's in there.
believe, was $100,000 and that included everything.
Yeah.
And I believe that was a reduction from what the total was before.
I just, when I have
would-
this conversation.
Jen's not in here, so.
So my answer to that is still the same. If we can, I have no problem funding 4-H fully. If we can put, and I spoke to the WSU director or chief, whoever he is high up, that if we can put budgetary items for pens, paper, stamps, gas, all that other stuff in the 4-H program, but that the 4-H coordinator does not have access to those budgetary lines, I have no money, or I have no problem putting money into the 4-H program budgetary lines. I have.
Did you say that the 4-H coordinator has no access to? Did
No,
you
the
mean
4-H coordinator does have access to, but the extension coordinator does not. And he fully understood that at the time. So I don't know if it's possible, if there's, once we pay the 4-H person and pay Hannah, if there's an extra $8,000 in our $100,000 budget that we can put under the 4-H program, that Hannah's or Harley's direct supervisor, I can't remember her name in the 4-H world, has the oversight over that, of which Hannah does not have access to those bars numbers or signing her own receipts. Then I'm fine with it. If it comes down to where Hannah has access to those bars numbers, I will be opposed to anything other than wages. Just based off previous budgetary issues.
Well, that goes a whole long ways into what Commissioner Zoller was talking about. Fixing relations with the person. It's being facetious for anybody who is listening. In our previous contracts, it was one contract, and our agreements, like all the other agreements that I understand with all the other counties that we've seen, the county pays for the wages, but the county is also expected to pay for a place for them to work and the accessory units for that, like pens and paper and stuff. Many counties end up paying for their vehicle or their transportation, of them doing their job in the county. What I'm hearing is that Commissioner Christopher wants to fully fund 4-H, and I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm reiterating so that you can fix it. If I'm wrong, fully fund 4-H, fully fund the wages for the extension agent, eliminate any of the accessories for the extension agent. And then if there's anything left over on the 100,000 to fund the pens and paper and stuff in 4-H. And then we would be asking, and this is where I'm coming in, we would then be asking Commissioner Zoller or Commissioner Christopher to go and do that negotiation with WSU to get that in as part of the contract. Is that in essence what?
That miraculously was correct. In my conversations with head 4-H, head WSU guy, he fully understands that. He fully agrees with that. And he says other counties are doing just that. So it's nothing special. It's nothing that would be a one-off for us. And he's essentially got contracts just sitting on standby, willing to send over. His first initial conversation was that we just fund the employment and not pens, paper, or anything. I am throwing out the bone of I have no problem funding pens, paper, boxes, gasoline, whatnot for the 4-H program, because I have not seen any fiduciary mismanagement from the 4-H program.
Yep. I think I have that and I can reach back out to him. Any questions?
I guess my big question is does the 100,000 fully fund both positions?
Yes.
And how much is left over?
So we budgeted 100,000 in one line item, so it's not specific. Positions, as far as WSU positions are paid from WSU. We pay their benefits. And yes, it's potential that it would cover the benefits alone. From what I can see and just quickly estimate. And you had asked, was it reduced from prior years? Is that what the other question was? Yes, in 2022, it was roughly $185,000 for the budget. In 23, it was roughly 135,000. And now it's down to 100,000.
Okay.
Any other questions?
But that major reduction from 180 to 130 is WSU paying for the 4-H.
That was the transition of
yeah.
that
That they
position.
offered to do. We did not cut it. They offered to do it.
I am fine with Commissioner Zoller, who's taken this on, going and negotiating the contract, and my goal is to ensure that the 4-H coordinator and the cost to run that system, I see an immense benefit to the residents of Klickitat County, and I want to see that. And I also see immense benefits to the extension agent position. And I want to see that continue. If WSU can take up the difference, because we're going from 130,000 down to 100, which means in order to provide the same level of services, WSU is going to have to pick up another $30,000. I mean, that's the easiest way, and that's not including COLAs and everything else. So you'd think it'd be going from 130 to 140 thereabouts with inflation and everything. So but I want to give Commissioner Zoller all of the wherewithal to negotiate on the best interests of Klickitat County.
I would also, I'm sure WSU will be aware that as they're working with you and negotiating or coming up with some kind of draft or whatever, it comes down to a board vote, which
Oh, yeah.
regardless, might still be a 2-against-1, but
Yeah, we'll see what they come up with and we'll bring it back to you.
Okay.
Works. Yes.
Perfect.
Oop, 1 minute late.
So do we close the meeting? Or
You need to recess the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. So we need to.
Yes.
Until 3 o'clock.
Wait.
Or
What?
how long is the Board of Health meeting gonna take? Do we have any idea? I think it does.
yeah.
We're scheduled for an hour.
But what do we have at 3?
Nothing. We just have to go back to Board of Commissioners to adjourn for the day.
No, we can just recess the Board of Commissioners meeting until Friday or until Thursday. We don't have to come back after that.
That would work. Or yeah, that works. Let's do that.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to recess the regular meeting until 9 a.m. on Thursday, January 25th, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Any discussion?
I would just like to add, we have, the Board of County Commissioners has a meeting this evening at 6 o'clock, right?
Correct.
For
KC.
KC. We're having that meeting, right?
Yes.
On my calendar.
Yep, there's KC meeting tonight, and then more than one commissioner may be attending the key leaders presentation on Friday. Maybe, I don't know. Wanted to make note of that in case more than one did.
Okay.
I will second that very eloquently worded motion.
No, the motion, we were just in discussion. So in discussion, I was just letting it be known that we don't have to make that part of the motion.
Okay.
A second discussion. You any more discussion?
You,
Okay. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
okay,
now-
Board of Health.